Chapter 1666. Who wouldn't like to watch the show? Upon catching the pungent odor of the fish, both Li Xia and Kai Wei frowned, directing annoyed glances at Mrs. Guan. Their irritation stemmed from the perceived bullying they felt from Mrs. Guan. In their view, using local dishes as a pretext was just an excuse. How could Mrs. Guan dare to serve something like this to Madame, especially considering her pregnancy? Madame hadn't experienced morning sickness during her pregnancy, thanks to her robust health and the attentive care provided by Lord. His meticulous concern extended to every aspect of Madame's life, particularly her diet, where he maintained an unwavering vigilance. Madame's recent diet had been a collection of light and delectable dishes, with a variety of soups prepared daily to ensure she didn't lose her appetite. In stark contrast, Mrs. Guan had orchestrated a foolish attempt to serve something unconventional. Xiao Xian's composed expression only fueled Mrs. Guan's inner sneer, finding solace in Li Xia and Caillou's visible discontent. Curling her lips, Mrs. Guan introduced the fish to Xiao Xian with a warm smile, claiming it as Aunt Zez's secret stinky fish, reserved for the most esteemed guests, emphasizing Madame Xiao's importance. Madame Xiao, be our guest and have a taste of this exclusive delicacy. The laughter from the other ladies echoed Mrs. Guan's sentiment. However, it was apparent to everyone that outsiders might find this dish challenging to appreciate. Typically, if such a unique dish were to be served, it would be explained to the esteemed guests beforehand. They would then decide whether to try it or not. Mrs. Guan's actions seemed more geared toward embarrassing the prefect's new wife. Those who outwardly supported Mrs. Guan were likely maintaining their rapport with her. However, many believed that the prefect's tenure might be short-lived, and, consequently, they paid little attention to Xiao Xian. Who wouldn't like to watch a show? Fan Rian took particular delight in the situation, relishing the hope that Xiao Xian would embarrass herself. This was precisely why Fan Rian mockingly referred to her as Rui. Mrs. Guan, orchestrating the theatrical presentation, directed the maid to place the dish in front of Xiao Xian. Rather than succumb to potential embarrassment, Xiao Xian exhibited genuine interest, expressing with a smile, "Since it's a specialty of Anne's prefecture, I should give it a try." However, Mrs. Guan, you've mistaken me for a distinguished guest. I am, in fact, the wife of the prefect. Mrs. Guan's smile faltered, and she half-jokingly remarked through gritted teeth, "My apologies. Madame Xiao, you're truly magnanimous. Please don't take it to heart." Xiao Xian reciprocated with a smile. "Mrs. Guan, there's no need to apologize. It's not a significant matter. I'm merely reminding you that I'm here in Anne's province with my lord, not as a mere guest." "That's right, absolutely," echoed Mrs. Guan, feigning agreement with a forced smile. As they exchanged smiles, an undercurrent of mutual disdain lingered between them. Xiao Xian disliked Mrs. Guan's constant attempts to assert her dominance, as if Xiao Xian had encroached upon her territory. Conversely, Mrs. Guan harbored a general aversion towards Xiao Xian. Maintaining her composure, Xiao Xian instructed Li Xia to pick up some fish with chopsticks. After tasting it, she nodded approvingly at Mrs. Guan and remarked with a smile, "This stinky fish has a pungent aroma, but the taste is delightful. It seems to be marinated and dried, offering a chewy texture and a hint of sunshine in its flavor." Chapter 1667. Who knows? This weirdo, Xiao Xian, greeted everyone with a warm smile. "Let's eat." Caught off guard, Mrs. Guan quickly composed herself and responded, "Yes, yes, please, please." Smiles and pleasantries were exchanged before everyone began partaking in the dishes presented. Dish after dish was served, and for the most part, Mrs. Guan had successfully organized the reception banquet. Any hiccups or mishaps would reflect on her, and the guests were well aware of this, with Xiao Xian being absolved of any responsibility. Mrs. Guan's desire to embarrass Xiao Xian remained unfulfilled, leaving her with no outlet for her frustration. Aware of Xiao Xian's pregnancy, Mrs. Guan estimated that it hadn't progressed beyond 3 months. As a mother of two, She possessed keen insights into the signs of pregnancy, particularly the early stages. During the initial 3 months, most pregnant women experience nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, and overall discomfort. In some cases, these symptoms could be quite severe, making even a few sips of water nauseating. Given the strong aroma of the secret stinky fish, Mrs. Guan doubted that many outsiders could stomach it, let alone a pregnant woman in the early stages. She secretly hoped Qiao Xian would experience a bout of nausea or, better yet, vomit on the spot. Such an embarrassing spectacle would leave an indelible mark on the prefect's wife. Regardless of future banquets in Anne's province, the memory of this reception would linger, stoking Mrs. Guan's anger. The more Mrs. Guan dwelled on it, the more she deemed it a brilliant idea. She eagerly anticipated Qiao Xian's reaction, only to be met with bewilderment. This odd woman, clearly in the early stages of pregnancy, managed to enjoy the stinky fish with a smile, even going so far as to praise its supposed sunlight aroma, which Mrs. Guan found non-existent. Regret gnawed at Mrs. Guan. Had she foreseen this outcome, she might have prepared alternative dishes. Now, facing this awkward situation, she feared becoming the subject of mockery among the attending ladies. As the banquet unfolded, the madams indulged in wine, contributing to a lively atmosphere. Pear blossom wine, with its mellow and moderately sweet flavor, was served. Qiao Xian, sharing news of her pregnancy with a smile, received congratulations but refrained from drinking. Fan Rian harbored regret, convinced that if Qiao Xian weren't pregnant, Mrs. Guan would persist in embarrassing her, perhaps urging everyone to toast her or even concocting some mischief in her drink-a-euro, an entertaining scenario, in her opinion. The banquet proceeded smoothly, and after consuming noodles, the madams strolled leisurely into the garden to digest their food, sip tea, and engaged in conversations. Some took breaks to freshen up. Nearly an hour later, they regrouped to enjoy opera and other entertainment. Qiao Xian found herself in the parlor, engaged in conversation with several ladies. Mrs. Guan had contemplated returning to her room for a wardrobe change, but hesitated, reluctant to leave Qiao Xian alone. Uncertain about the topic of discussion among the ladies, she decided to join them and engage in conversation. Chapter 1668. Young Master Guan. Mrs. Guan understood that if Qiao Xian persisted in making friends with the other ladies, she would find ample opportunities, and Mrs. Guan couldn't prevent her. Nevertheless, Mrs. Guan found it unbearable to witness Qiao Xian's sociable interactions right under her nose. Seeing Qiao Xian chatting amiably with the other ladies filled her with discontent, and she silently wished that the ladies would ignore Qiao Xian altogether. Sensing it was almost time for a break, Mrs. Guan stood up and suggested that everyone head to the garden stage to enjoy the show. This tactical move aimed to curtail the prefect's wife's conversations with the other madams, which had become an eyesore for Mrs. Guan. Qiao Xian, along with the others, exited the reception pavilion. To her surprise, shortly after leaving the pavilion, as they walked halfway along the corridor toward the waterside theater, a boy around 7 or 8 years old darted towards them. Chasing after him were a maidservant who appeared to be a nanny and 2 more maidservants. Recognizing the child, the madams and young ladies greeted him enthusiastically and made way. "Hello, young Master Guan." It was Guan Jialing, the son of the deputy prefect and his wife. Known for his mischievous nature, Guan Jialing, pampered by his mother, often acted as a little tyrant in the state government office's backyard. Even when attending events as a guest, he rarely displayed well-behaved conduct. With the reception banquet for Qiao Xian underway, Mrs. Guan foresaw being occupied and unable to attend to her son. Anxious that he might cause trouble, yet concerned he might be mistreated, Mrs. Guan instructed the nanny and 2 maids to care for the young master and prevent him from leaving the West Yard. The nanny and the 2 maidservants reluctantly accepted the order, all the while nursing silent complaints in their hearts. Dealing with young master's strong-willed personality posed a formidable challenge, and they knew it wouldn't be easy to confine him to the Western campus for an entire half-day. Their expectations turned out to be accurate. Despite their best efforts, they could only manage to detain him for half a day. After lunch, all attempts to restrain him proved futile. Small in stature, but surprisingly strong, he resisted any attempts to control him physically. Moreover, given his favored status as the master's son and his tendency to complain to Mrs. Guan, the nanny and 2 maids dared not impede his movements. Fearing repercussions if he reported their actions to Mrs. Guan, they opted to avoid any confrontation. Besides, having been on the receiving end of his physical aggression for no apparent reason before, they deemed it not worth the trouble. Resigned to the situation, the nanny and the 2 maidservants accompanied him beyond the west courtyard, allowing him to frolic in the expansive garden. Children, inherently energetic, were especially exuberant when mischievous. Considering they were within the estate's grounds, the nanny and maidservants exercised leniency, taking advantage of the moment to rest. To their surprise, in the blink of an eye, Guan Jialing had vanished. Upon spotting him, the nanny observed him heading towards Madame Xiao's reception banquet and hastened to catch up. As her son approached, Mrs. Guan cast a disapproving glance at the nanny and the 2 maids, though a trace of happiness lingered at the sight of her son after a brief absence. Before Mrs. Guan could utter a word, Guan Jialing abruptly shook her off and kicked Xiao Xian, startling everyone present. Reacting swiftly, Kaiwa blocked Xiao Xian's path, but Guan Jialing persistently kicked and hit her several times while vehemently scolding her. "Who told you to bully my mother? Who told you to bully my mother? I will kick you to death." Hit, hit, hit. Upon realizing it was Kai Wei who bore the brunt of the kicks, Guan Jialing redirected his aggression toward Xiao Xian. Chapter 1669. Shouldn't Mrs. Guan give an explanation? Kai Wei hurriedly intervened to stop Guan Jialing, while Li Xia, frightened, assisted Xiao Xian to a safer location. People, startled by the commotion, quickly regained their senses and rushed forward to help. Anxiously crying out, Mrs. Guan pleaded, "Jia, stop," as she rushed forward to pull him away. The already narrow corridor became even more crowded, with people pushing and colliding amid the chaos. The cacophony of screams and shouts intensified. Lord Xiao swiftly intervened, pulling Guan Jialing back from the turmoil. Mrs. Guan, fearing her son might be hurt inadvertently, struggled to keep pace. "Jia, calm down. Don't misbehave." Concerned that Xiao Xian might retaliate against her son, Mrs. Guan sought to protect him and instructed those around her. "Take the young master home, be cautious, and avoid frightening Himuro." The tumultuous atmosphere, filled with shouts and screams, distressed her son. Mrs. Guan's heart ached at the thought. Li Qiu, Kai Hua, Xiao Qiao, and the others were present, and upon seeing Xiao Xian unharmed, they sighed in relief. As the scene gradually calmed, Mrs. Guan, looking at her son with concern, appeared as if he had been wronged. Xiao Xian, incensed, sneered and addressed Mrs. Guan. "Mrs. Guan, don't you owe me an explanation?" All eyes turned toward them, and the madams and young ladies waited for Mrs. Guan's response. In the face of Xiao Xian's question, Mrs. Guan felt a mixture of embarrassment and irritation. She struggled to maintain composure, forcing a smile as she replied, "Madam Xiao, the child is still young and thoughtless. Are you genuinely upset by such a child?" Li Xia and the others, infuriated by Mrs. Guan's shameless behavior, glared at her with disdain. Xiao Xian sneered. "Indeed, the child is young and naive, but I would like to know, Mrs. Guan, where did he pick up such words? Who taught him this? When did I ever mistreat you, Mrs. Guan? Please clarify." Mrs. Guan, feeling a mix of anger and anxiety, retorted, "Children can be talkative. You might have said something without any basis. Madam Xiao, why are you dwelling on this matter? Do you suspect that I instructed him? It's absurd. Why would I teach my son to say such things? What benefit would it bring me to teach him that?" That was Mrs. Guan's response. Xiao Xian's lingering suspicion further fueled Mrs. Guan's frustration. She genuinely had not coached her son to make such statements. She had never uttered anything of the sort in his presence. Puzzled as to why her son had intervened on her behalf, she speculated that the nanny and maidservants might have shared something with him. Mrs. Guan, however, saw her son's actions as considerate rather than misguided. Moreover, he hadn't harmed Xiao Xian. He had merely kicked one of the maids a few times, which she considered inconsequential. Seizing the moment to assert herself, Xiao Xian coldly stated, "That is your concern, and it doesn't involve me. If you don't offer an explanation, this matter won't be dropped." Suddenly, Xiao Xian winced, placing her hands on her belly. "My stomach is in pain. It hurts." Li Xia, Li Qiu, and the others were thrown into a panic. Chapter 1670, Shocked Madam. Don't be afraid. Madam, you must be shocked. Madam, please be all right. Get a doctor. Where's old master? Go and tell him. Iro Li Xia, Li Qiu, and the others were panicking, and Mrs. Guan was startled too. She quickly instructed someone to help Xiao Xian sit down. Despite the pain, Xiao Xian scolded them. "Don't come here. Don't come here." Mrs. Guan stiffened and concealed her inner fury. What kind of look was that? "I'm so sorry for what happened today. I will hold a banquet for you another day. I'm so sorry." Xiao Xian threw a look at the crowd and gestured for Li Xia and Li Qiu to assist her. Kai Hua, and the others hurriedly followed. Mrs. Guan seethed with anger. She had organized the reception banquet, and it ended up like this. How unlucky. Uncertain if Xiao Xian's stomachache was genuine or an act, Mrs. Guan, amidst the chaos, couldn't discern the truth. Nevertheless, she felt compelled to check and express concern, given the situation. Forced to smile, Mrs. Guan bid farewell to everyone. Recognizing that the reception banquet had concluded prematurely due to the incident, the guests swiftly conveyed polite sentiments, expressed concern for Madame Xiao, and departed one by one. After apologizing, Mrs. Guan instructed the housekeeper to see off the guests and then hurried to the east courtyard. Xiao Xian was startled, but her stomach did not hurt. However, Mrs. Guan's attitude was so irritating that she couldn't let it slide without causing some trouble. When Mrs. Guan arrived, Xiao Xian was feigning pain, and Li Xiao and the others were anxiously trying to comfort her. Soon, Xiao Yunduan rushed in. "Wife." Although Xiao Xian had been pretending, seeing Xiao Yunduan made her feel wronged. She started crying in his arms, complaining about how frightened she was. Xiao Yunduan's heart ached. He gently patted her shoulders and offered words of comfort. Then he shot a cold look at Mrs. Guan. Standing there, Mrs. Guan felt extremely embarrassed, unsure whether to stay or leave. She even regretted following them in. Now that she was crying and being comforted by her husband, it was not appropriate for Mrs. Guan to interrupt, let alone turn around and leave. When the doctor finally arrived, Xiao Yunduan asked the doctor to examine Xiao Xian. Mrs. Guan's heart raced as she nervously awaited the doctor's verdict. The diagnosis revealed that Xiao Xian had experienced a miscarriage and needed to rest in bed. She was prescribed medicine for 3 days and advised to return for a follow-up. Xiao Yunduan nodded, instructing the doctor to write the prescription and procure the medicine. He assisted Xiao Xian in lying down and instructed her to rest well. Then he stood up and turned to Mrs. Guan. "Mrs. Guan, please come this way." Mrs. Guan finally seized an opportunity to speak. She let out a sigh of relief and forced a smile. "Lord Xiao, Actualuro, Mrs. Guan, please. Let's discuss this outside. We mustn't disturb my wife's rest. She cannot endure any more shocks." Taken aback, Mrs. Guan nodded and left. In the hall, Deputy Prefect Guan was also present. Upon learning that Madame Xiao had a miscarriage but was otherwise fine, he felt relieved. Mrs. Guan, eager to explain herself, hurriedly said, "Lord Xiao, this is all a misunderstanding. The child is still young and inexperienced." Chapter 1671, Interrogation Misunderstanding. Xiao Yunduan shot them a cold look. "I don't see any misunderstanding here." Both Mrs. Guan and her husband were taken aback by Xiao Yunduan's unexpected rudeness. They looked somewhat surprised, and Mrs. Guan couldn't help but interject, "Lord Xiao, Madame Xiao is fine, isn't she? Of course, I failed to take good care of her today, and for that, I apologize, Euro. Mrs. Guan made the apology sound like a reluctant concession. If she had known she was in a feudal competition with Xiao Xian and wanted to outdo her in every aspect, she might have chosen to apologize earlier, realizing it felt as though she had slapped herself in the face. Xiao Yunduan grew angrier, glaring sharply at Mrs. Guan. In your eyes, my wife might seem fine after the shock, but what if something had gone wrong? You've certainly taught your son well, considering his young age. Mrs. Guan disliked hearing disparaging remarks about her son. Lord Xiao, that's going too far. Jiar is just a child. Had he been a few years older, Mrs. Guan might have realized the potential consequences. Indignant, Mrs. Guan retorted, "What do you mean by that?" Xiao Yunduan sneered. "How do you plan to explain your young master's absurd words to me? Where did he hear such ridiculous things?" Mrs. Guan, dissatisfied and eager to argue, was stopped by Deputy Prefect, who wore an amiable expression that softened people's anger. His demeanor and smile left a positive impression. He courteously cupped his hands. "Lord Xiao, please calm down. This woman is ignorant and inarticulate. She doesn't know how to express herself. Lord Xiao, disregard her. It's all her fault. She failed to take proper care of the child. Fortunately, Madame Xiao is blessed. Otherwise, I would never forgive this woman. Once Madame Xiao is better, they'll have her prepare a gift before coming to apologize sincerely. Naturally, we will cover the expenses for the treatment and medicine. We won't allow Lord to spend any more money." He continued to apologize profusely with a bitter smile. "Jiar is still young and doesn't know any better. I don't know who's spreading rumors, but Lord Xiao, please believe me. I have no intention of interfering in your governance of this state. My wife harbors no ill intentions either. I will thoroughly investigate this matter and provide you with a clear explanation." Xiao Yunduan's fury did not diminish. However, Guan Jialing was genuinely just a child who lacked understanding. Arguing with such an insensible child would serve no purpose. That was precisely why Mrs. Guan felt empowered to maintain her self-righteous and nonchalant attitude. Given Deputy Prefect Guan's comprehensive explanation, Xiao Yunduan found himself with little more to say. After Deputy Prefect concluded his statements, a cold silence enveloped the room, and the atmosphere turned increasingly oppressive. Mrs. Guan, sensing the need to break the silence, attempted to clear her throat, but found herself hesitating for some unknown reason. Even Deputy Prefect Guan, usually composed, felt an inexplicable unease. After a brief pause, Xiao Yunduan spoke icily. "Since Deputy Prefect Guan has spoken, I will await your thorough investigation and your son's discipline. You need not attend the government office for the time being." Chapter 1672. Can't let them go easy. Deputy Prefect Guan and his wife were left stunned. Mrs. Guan was about to speak when Deputy Prefect Guan gave her a warning look. He then smiled and bowed sincerely, saying, Yes, Lord is right. I will certainly follow your instructions. Lord, please rest assured." Xiao Yunduan nodded. "You may leave now." "Thank you, Lord. I apologize again for the disturbance." Deputy Prefect Guan bowed once more and exited the room with Mrs. Guan. As soon as they left, Xiao Yunduan rushed back to the bedroom. "My lovey Euro, I'm fine." Xiao Xian smiled and gently squeezed Xiao Yunduan's hands. She reassured him, saying, "Kai Wei and Li Xia protected me, and Guan Jialing is just a child. How much harm could he cause? I'm truly fine, don't worry. I just felt that we couldn't let them off so easily. We had to put on an act. Children could indeed be quite troublesome." Xiao Yunduan held her hands, feeling a sense of relief. "I'm glad you're okay. Please be cautious in the coming days, and be even more vigilant in the Futuro." Upon receiving Song's report, the blood in his veins seemed to freeze. In that moment, it felt as if his heart had stopped beating. He dared not contemplate what he would do if something had truly happened to his wife. Xiao Yunduan chose not to disclose Mrs. Guan's words to Xiao Xian, which only fueled her anger. After consoling Xiao Xian, Xiao Yunduan advised, "I believe Mrs. Guan is an ignorant and self-centered individual. Keep your distance from her and those in the west courtyard." Xiao Xian nodded with a smile. I never intended to befriend Mrs. Guan. He will come tomorrow to offer an apology. If you prefer not to see him, you have every right to decline. Xiao Xin smiled. Certainly not. Xiao Yunduan grinned. Well, that man is a bit thoughtless and muddled. I hope you won't take offense. Xiao Xin chuckled. All right, I won't let it bother me. They continued their conversation for a while. Concerned about Xiao Xin's well-being, Xiao Yunduan eventually assisted her in lying down, tenderly kissed her, and then left. The reception banquet at the restaurant naturally came to an end. Seizing the opportunity, Xiao Yunduan decided to suspend Deputy Prefect Guan, necessitating a visit to the government office. With a sneer, Xiao Yunduan was eager to see what kind of response would be elicited. Returning home, both Mrs. Guan and Deputy Prefect Guan appeared disgruntled. Mrs. Guan fumed. Lord Xiao is truly influential. He exploited the opportunity to suspend you, old master. Humph, it seems he's using this as an excuse to seek revenge. Deputy Prefect Guan, while also displeased, displayed a more composed demeanor. He replied indifferently, "Don't make a fuss. He's the prefect. If he wants to suspend me, he'll find a reason. Besides, it's quite fortunate. I've been occupied all year, and now I can enjoy a break. A half-day of leisure is a rare blessing. I'm curious to see how Lord Xiao manages the entire government office. I've been in charge for so long. There's no part of the government untouched by my influence. A few instructions from me, and Lord Xiao won't be able to do much. He'll have no choice but to plead with me to return." He eagerly anticipated Xiao Yunduan coming to beg him to return. Upon hearing his words, Mrs. Guan's eyes sparkled with delight. She couldn't resist gloating and said with a smile, "Excellent. Old master, that's a brilliant plan. Since Lord Xiao thinks he's clever, let him enjoy himself." Chapter 1673. Is it really not you? When he discovers he's been asked to shoot himself in the foot, he'll surely regret it. When he extends an invitation to you, old master, do not readily agree. Humph. Deputy Prefect Guan sneered. Certainly. Deputy Prefect Guan furrowed his brows once more and remarked, "I haven't even addressed your involvement yet. How could you instruct Jiaer to engage in such folly? Some matters can be handled discreetly, but not so openly. It benefits us nothing to clash with them, especially in front of numerous guests. Madame Xiao is expecting. If something were to happen, how can the couple refrain from seeking vengeance? What folly have you committed? Old master." Mrs. Guan panicked upon hearing this. "I genuinely did not advise him on this. How could I be so thoughtless? You know my character, don't you? Regardless of my displeasure with Madame Xiao's conduct, I would never harm the child in her womb. I was just as shocked. Are you absolutely certain it wasn't you? Old master, why would I deceive you? You know the kind of person I am." Deputy Prefect Guan pondered the situation and concurred. It seemed implausible for his wife to act so foolishly. "Did you perhaps say something to the maidservants that the child overheard?" Leading to Ero, Mrs. Guan was left speechless. Well, Ero, this was not beyond the realm of possibility. Her heart ached for her son. Given the chance, he would always remain by her side. Since he was still young, she and the maidservants naturally didn't purposefully exclude him. If her son happened to recall that conversation, it could prove problematic. Mrs. Guan felt both troubled and relieved. The trouble lay in this incident, while the solace stemmed from her son's deep affection for her. Indeed, he was the son she cherished the most. Observing her distress, Deputy Prefect Guan formed a rough understanding. He advised, "Jiaer is gradually maturing. You must exercise more caution in the future. Something shouldn't be discussed in his presence. He has a sharp memory, but he may not fully comprehend. It wouldn't bode well if he inadvertently revealed something outside." Mrs. Guan's heart skipped a beat, and she was taken aback. She hastily agreed. "Certainly, some matters were not meant for outsiders, Ursiro. This issue is straightforward. Bring Jiaer here and inquire with him." Mrs. Guan stated, "Jiaer was also frightened today. Old master, you should question him carefully later. Patience is key. Scolding him won't help. Understand what needs to be done. Hurry and summon him." Mrs. Guan issued the command, and her maid Jinju went to fetch him. Soon, Guan Jialing, the nanny, and the two little girls were summoned. Mrs. Guan had always been wary of the nanny, fearing she might influence her son against her. Hence, the Guan family's nanny held a lower status compared to others. She appeared particularly tense in Mrs. Guan's presence. Realizing today's matter wouldn't be easily resolved, the three of them were already uneasy. Upon entering, they promptly knelt down. Guan Jialing remained unperturbed. Spotting his mother, he joyfully called out and rushed over. Mrs. Guan embraced him and greeted with a smile. "My darling." Mother and son shared an affectionate moment. Deputy Prefect Guan cleared his throat. Concerned about frightening her son, Mrs. Guan handled the situation herself. She spoke gently to Guan Jialing. "Jiaer, be good. I have a few questions for you. Answer obediently, and you'll have the kitchen prepare your favorite dishes tonight. Sound good?" Guan Jialing blinked. "I want fried fish and Hexiang restaurant's crispy treats." All right. Chapter 1674. Used. Mrs. Guan agreed with a tender smile and inquired, "Jiaer, why did you come here today, accusing Madame Xiao of mistreating me? Where did you hear that? What exactly did you hear? Please tell me." Guan Jialing pressed his lips together and blurted out, "That's right. I overheard two girls talking. I got really angry, so I rushed over to help Mother vent her frustration." The couple was taken aback and simultaneously questioned. "What did they say?" Guan Jialing was indignant, tightly pursing his lips. "They said Madame Xiao is mean and wicked. She used foul language and even plotted to have someone hit Mother and snatch her money. She even wanted to take me away and make me her slave. She planned to drive our family out and forbid us from living in the backyard of the state government office. She's so awful, so awful. Mother, I don't like her at all. Tell Father to kick their family out." All right. Jiaer, did you really hear all of this?" Yes. Mrs. Guan gazed at her son and felt a bit weary, but she also trusted that he wouldn't deceive her. If he said so, it must be true. Comforting her son, Mrs. Guan instructed Jinju and Jade to take him downstairs for some snacks. Guan Jialing, still holding on to his earlier request, insisted, "I want deep-fried fish and crispy snacks tonight." All right. Mother will instruct the kitchen to prepare deep-fried fish, and he'll have someone fetch your snacks. Only after her son happily followed the two girls did Mrs. Guan turn her attention to the nanny and scolded, "Are you deaf? Why didn't you come to me when you overheard such absurdities being uttered in front of the young master?" Deputy Prefect Guan also frowned, his gaze stern. It was evident that someone sought to sow discord, deliberately stirring up trouble with ill intentions. The nanny's face paled with fear at the gravity of the accusation. The prospect of being blamed for such a serious matter terrified her. "Madam, I swear I'm innocent. I had no idea. Young master is so lively and active. Sometimes I may lose sight of him momentarily. I promptly searched for him. While I did find him quickly, there was a brief period when I wasn't with young master. Perhaps someone exploited that to me." The nanny quickly confessed, pleading for mercy. "It's entirely my fault. I shouldn't have been careless. You'll learn from this mistake and be more vigilant in the future. Please, madam, show mercy." The two little girls were also frightened and joined in begging for forgiveness. Mrs. Guan sneered, "Do you realize the trouble your negligence has caused me? Offering apologies won't absolve you of responsibility." I won't dare. Mrs. Guan expressed her frustration, swearing, "Who is behind this? How dare they manipulate my son like this? They'll find out and deal with them severely." Mrs. Guan questioned the nanny and the maidservants about anyone suspicious. Deputy Prefect Guan pondered before stating, "Madam, I suspect it wasn't our servants. Who would dare use Jiaer like this? Our servants wouldn't risk it. Besides, Jiaer is still a Childero, impulsive and unable to restrain himself. He likely overheard the maidservant's conversation and jumped to conclusions. Asked him if he heard it today." Mrs. Guan snapped back to reality and hastily instructed Nanny Ding to inquire. Nanny Ding returned promptly, nodding. "Old master, madam, young master did indeed hear it today." Upon hearing it, he rushed toward the banquet guest bureau. Chapter 1675. We can only acknowledge this matter. Deputy Prefect Guan's tone turned cold. Madam, it seems that our Jiaer has been manipulated as a pawn. I suspect it might be a servant girl of one of the guests who deliberately spread these rumors. Finding any evidence might prove challenging. Mrs. Guan clenched her teeth, acknowledging that her husband's assessment likely held truth. With a limited number of servants at home, and most of them assisting with the event, it seemed implausible that one of them had orchestrated such a scheme. Her own maidservant, in particular, lacked the cunning to exploit her son for trouble. Considering the guests, Mrs. Guan faced a dead end. Investigations appeared futile. After lunch, numerous madams, ladies, and maidservants strolled through the courtyard, making it practically impossible to identify a potential culprit. Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao have managed to make enemies in just a few days. Observing his wife jesting at Xiao Yunduan and his wife, Deputy Prefect Guan frowned. We have no choice but to accept it. He shot a cold gaze at the nanny and the two little girls. Be cautious with your words. Utter nothing inappropriate. Otherwise, the nanny and the two girls nodded vigorously, expressing their agreement while desperately avoiding any wrong moves. As they conversed, a maid entered, reporting that Miss Liqiu from Madame Xiao's household had arrived. The couple exchanged glances, and Mrs. Guan sneered. You sent her over so quickly? Afraid I won't offer an apology? Call her in. Liqiu entered and greeted them. Mrs. Guan gave a half-smile. Miss Liqiu, what brings you here? Liqiu spoke. Mrs. Guan, our madam sent me to request some ointment for swelling and pain. The young master in our madam's family is quite strong. The bruise on Caillou's leg, about the size of a palm, is red and swollen. It's painful to the touch. Our madam forgot to prepare the medicine, so she thought of asking Mrs. Guan first. If you don't have any, we'll need to summon a doctor. Both Mrs. Guan and Deputy Prefect Guan's eyelids twitched. A doctor? If a doctor were to be involved, who knew what information might be revealed? Mrs. Guan understood that Liqiu had come to mock and humiliate her, but she had no choice but to suppress her anger and respond with a forced smile. There's some ointment. Nanny Ding, fetch it. Jiaer was thoughtless and caused Miss Kaiwa distress. Consider this ointment an apology. Miss Kaiwa, please don't take it to heart. She couldn't bring herself to apologize to Qiao Xian, let alone a mere maid like Kaiwa. Had it not been for Qiao Xian sending someone, her son wouldn't have mistreated a maid at all. But that was it. Apologize to a maidservant? It was out of the question. Liqiu understood that Mrs. Guan wouldn't apologize. Accepting the ointment, she smiled and added, My madam has more to convey to Mrs. Guan. Her servant will deliver the message. No need for any intermediaries. If there are any more injuries, she won't let it slide so easily. Liqiu gave a pointed look at the stunned Mrs. Guan and departed. Mrs. Guan seethed. How dare she? She's just a lowly maid. What does she mean by all this? Making a fuss over a mere maid. Deputy Prefect Guan also harbored a sense of disgust and remarked, Exercise restraint with our people in the future. After all, we're not the sole residents behind this county office. Chapter 1676. Compensation. The following day, Mrs. Guan arranged a substantial gift and sent the nanny and the two girls to visit Xiao Xian, intending to offer an apology. The explanation crafted was, naturally, centered around the nanny and the two maidservants failing to adequately care for their young master. The maids, given to gossip, uttered a few inappropriate words about their master. Mrs. Guan's son, feeling neglected during her guests' entertainment, became displeased, and that led to the regrettable incident. I sincerely apologize, Madame Xiao. Mrs. Guan expressed remorse and handed over the nanny and the two maids to Qiao Xian, instructing her to deal with them as she saw fit. Qiao Xian found herself disgusted once again, handing them over to her for punishment. They are your servants, Mrs. Guan. I have no authority over them. You may administer the punishment yourself. Mrs. Guan didn't want to complicate matters for Qiao Xian, so she smiled and replied, I offer a genuine apology, Madame Xiao. The servants have indeed erred, and they should face consequences. Rest assured, Madame Xiao, Xiao Xian inquired. What do you propose, Mrs. Guan? Mrs. Guan felt the urge to curse. As you wish, Madam Xiao, Xiao Xian suggested. If that's the case, let's proceed. Take the young master outside and administer a public flogging, so everyone can witness the consequences of negligence. Li Qiu, inform our staff to pay close attention. While observing the punishment was one aspect, it was crucial to convey that Mrs. Guan had ordered the flogging. Li Xia agreed and hurriedly left. The nanny and the two girls continued pleading for mercy, but they were swiftly escorted away. Mrs. Guan felt irritated. Xiao Xian was the one who mentioned flogging, so why was she now saying it was Mrs. Guan's idea? When did she say such a thing? For such a trivial matter, Madame Xiao had taken it too far. Mrs. Guan had anticipated that Xiao Xian might teach the nanny and the two girls a lesson, but she never expected her to resort to flogging. Yet, Xiao Xian had made her stance unequivocal, leaving no room for changes even if she desired to backtrack. Unhappy with the situation, Mrs. Guan aimed to reciprocate and said, I should inform Madame Xiao of one thing. Jiar mentioned overhearing two maids gossiping in the garden yesterday, and it angered him. The maids were hidden by the flower shade, and he couldn't identify them. Curiously, the nanny and the maids were absent at the time. I suspect they might not be her maids. I wonder which lady they might be attending the banquet with. Of course, it's just a speculation. In merely mentioning it casually, Madame Xiao, you can simply disregard it. Seeing Xiao Xian's surprised expression, Mrs. Guan felt satisfied and left. Once she departed, Li Xia couldn't contain herself. Your words are preposterous. We've only been in An's province for a short time. How could something like this happen? You must be evading responsibility and spreading baseless accusations to create trouble for our madam, with no known adversaries who would commit such a malicious act. Xiao Xian blinked and chuckled. Actually, I believe she's not lying. Li Xiao was taken aback. But how can there be such a persona euro? Xiao Xian smiled. Not everyone would engage in such actions. Sometimes it's merely a fleeting thought. After all, many harbor resentment when Lord is present, seizing every opportunity to stir up trouble. From now on, pay attention to everything. Understood, madam. Chapter 1677. That makes sense. When Xiao Yunduan returned and Xiao Xian briefed him, he wore a look of realization and commented, I found it strange yesterday, so it all adds up now. Xiao Xian smiled. I didn't dwell on it much, but Mrs. Guan's words provided some clarity. Certainly, no matter how foolish and impulsive Mrs. Guan might be, her actions didn't align with her usual behavior. She was fortunate and in good health, so everything turned out fine. However, if things had taken a turn for the worst, it could have resulted in a blatant murder. No one would believe it had nothing to do with Mrs. Guan. The consequences would undoubtedly be severe, possibly leading to the death penalty for the couple. Was there any reason for her to hastily escalate the situation into an irreparable conflict? The reception banquet, hosted by her abbot, would never have allowed her son to engage in such behavior. Without her guidance, the servants and nanny wouldn't dare act independently. Mrs. Guan wasn't the type to tolerate a servant bullying her master and acting without restraint. However, children couldn't always control their emotions. When angered, they tended to act impulsively, disregarding consequences. It was conceivable that certain guests aimed to instigate a conflict between the local powerful figure, Deputy Prefect Guan, and the newly arrived Lord Xiao, who had recently reached his peak. The culprits remained a mystery to Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan. This couldn't be helped. Their time in An's province had been brief, and this marked their first official interaction with these influential clans. Beyond this incident, there had been no other interactions, making it challenging to discern how they had unknowingly offended someone. No matter what, this serves as a lesson for us, Xiao Yunduan remarked in a serious tone. The wealthy families and local powers here are bolder and more audacious than we initially thought. My wife, exercise greater caution in the future. Avoid unnecessary outings. Xiao Yunduan understood that his wife wasn't someone who would confine herself to the mansion forever. He embraced her and planted a gentle kiss on her forehead. With a tinge of guilt, he softly said, "Be careful. Things will get better after the child is born." I'm genuinely worried now, while the backyard of the state government office was somewhat manageable, venturing outside posed uncertainties. Xiao Yunduan couldn't afford to take any risks, especially with a pregnant wife. Whether it was physical harm or merely fright, it was a significant concern. Unable to disclose her superpower to Xiao Yunduan, Xiao Xian nodded and smiled. "I understand. I'll be cautious and won't venture out unless absolutely necessary. I'll inform you whenever I need to go out." Recognizing his wife's reliability, Xiao Yunduan reassured her, "I'll accompany you whenever you go out. Call Ai, Sun Bai, and the others." Xiao Xian responded with a smile. However, she recalled that Mrs. Guan had initially shared this information to taunt and complicate matters for them. She intended for Xiao Yunduan to witness the challenges he faced in this place. Little did she know that it turned out to be quite the opposite. Had Xiao Xian known, she might have found it infuriating. Unbeknownst to her, it was Fan Rian who orchestrated the scheme. Displeased by the lack of respect she felt she deserved, Fan Rian perceived Madame Xiao as arrogantly indifferent, even toward the Fan familia, one of the three prominent families. Seizing an opportunity, Fan Rian, seated casually, nonchalantly strolled through the garden with her two maidservants. Upon spotting the young master of the Guan family alone, she seized the moment and instructed her maidservants to approach him. Chapter 1678. Complaint. Fan Rian impulsively acted without any intention to harm Xiao Xian. Her motive was rooted in personal dissatisfaction. Given the opportune moment, she decided to capitalize on it. The eventual outcome held little importance for her. She was content as long as it brought her satisfaction. Even if she failed to achieve her intended goal, it didn't bother her. After all, there was no loss on her part. With the numerous guests present, it was practically impossible to pinpoint her involvement. Moreover, considering the strained relationship between Mrs. Guan and the new Madame Xiao, it was evident to anyone that even Madame Xiao herself wouldn't suspect any wrongdoing in her son's actions. As for Mrs. Guan, would she be able to discern the truth? As a prominent figure among the three great families, Fan Rian had always carried herself with pride. In An's province, no one dared to challenge her status. Old Lady Fan inquired about the reception banquet and the well-being of the prefect's new wife. Before the two sisters-in-law could share their thoughts, Fan Rian interjected, "Madame Xiao is exceedingly arrogant and dismissive." I greeted her with a smile, but she responded perfunctorily and showed no interest in acknowledging me at Aliero. "Aren't all the officials' wives like this? They're truly vexatious. Why don't you take a closer look at this place? Let them revel in their arrogance." First Madame Fan and second Mrs. Fan exchanged glances, both rendered speechless and bewildered. Regardless, they couldn't recall any instance of Madame Xiao disregarding their sister-in-law. It puzzled them, but they assumed it stemmed from their sister-in-law not actively seeking her favor. To Fan Rian, this absence of overt flattery appeared as arrogance and neglect. Internally sneering, neither of them had any inclination to speak up for Xiao Xian. It seemed a trivial matter, and their mother-in-law consistently protected her. Speaking out might only invite scolding without any substantial benefit. Old Lady Fan expressed her displeasure, furrowing her brows as she remarked, "I heard that Lord Xiao was the previous primus. He is so young, so his wife must be young too. Young people should be proud. She doesn't give face to the Fan family in An's province. Humph, she thinks too highly of herself." Fan Rian sneered in agreement. "You're absolutely right. Let's wait and see how long Lord Xiao can maintain his position here." Meanwhile, Xiao Xian attended to her duties in the mansion while caring for the baby, but she didn't halt Songshi and Mian from their work. Zheng Sang returned from Yuzhong province, bringing Yuezhing Xiao's response. Yuezhing Xiao straightforwardly agreed to provide the seed as requested by Xiao Xian. He would also handle obtaining the seeds of King Solomon's seal, Crow Dipper, Angelica, and Honeysuckle. Both Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan felt relieved. Their long-standing friendship with Yuezhing Xiao had proven valuable. Xiao Xian planned to promote the cultivation of potatoes, herbs, peppers, star anise, and other cash crops in the mountainous region. While she had a preference for more expensive herbs like false starworts and Gastrodia elata, it was too conspicuous to cultivate them before establishing a stable foundation. Opting for King Solomon's seal, crow dipper, and similar crops was a strategic move. Though not as lucrative as the high-end herbs, they still held significant value, and Xiao Xian intended to gradually expand and develop in the future. Chapter 1679. Plant regarding peppers and aniseed. Xiao Xian had discovered wild varieties in the nearby woods during her land visit with Xiao Yinduan. They appear to be of good quality. During that moment, a realization struck her. Why else would she purchase 50,000 mu of farmland in one go? Confident in her superpower, she harbored no concerns about the growth of herbs, peppers, star anise, and the like. Post-harvest, she planned to dry them and secure a buyer. Even with limited mountain transportation, she remained unfazed. While she had contemplated planting lychees, longan, mangoes, dragon fruits, and more, she ultimately abandoned the idea. These tropical fruit trees weren't suitable for this location, but she intended to revisit the notion in 2 years. Given the proximity to Yuzhong province, transportation of these fruits would be relatively straightforward. With her crop choices determined, it was time to embark on exploration. Time was of the essence, but Xiao Xian was prepared to invest. 1,000 mu of prepped land was ready for medicinal herb cultivation. The adjacent 3,000 mu of wasteland, while slightly flatter than the mountainous terrain, presented its own challenges. Overgrown bushes and thorny stems posed obstacles, requiring extensive effort to clear the land. As for the mountainous areas, Xiao Xian had already identified the purchased plots, predominantly covered in weeds with fewer trees. Despite the selected areas having less dense foliage, the task of clearing remained substantial. With spring plowing approaching, the window for sowing seeds was imminent. Farmers would soon be engrossed in their busiest season, making labor more expensive for hiring land pioneers. Furthermore, time was of the essence. The cultivation of herbs, potatoes, peppers, and star anise needed to commence before mid-May. Xiao Xian's instructions to Song Shi and Mian Mian instilled a sense of urgency among everyone. Song Shi sought employment in the city, securing a job that paid 35 won per day, inclusive of lunch. This role was considered relatively superior, attracting many applicants. However, acquiring tools like hoes, sickles, hatchets, axes, and other implements for land cultivation proved challenging. Iron farming tools were not cheap, and households in the countryside often lacked complete sets, let alone city dwellers with limited access to land. Unfortunately, wasteland reclamation necessitated iron tools. Regrettably, Song Shi had to abandon his efforts due to the unavailability of these tools. Despite blacksmith shops in the city, iron farming tools were not readily accessible. Purchasing them posed difficulties as the supply was limited, with only around 40 various tools available. In the end, only 80 people were hired, and only half of them were able to bring their own farming tools. Handling the mountainous terrain, Song Shi led a few individuals to oversee the work. Meanwhile, on the flat ground, Lu Qian, Lu Fu, Mo Li, and others took charge. Xiao Xian provided reminders to organize and distribute the workload efficiently. They decided not to take the firewood generated during land reclamation daily, fearing disputes over who took more or less. Instead, they accumulated it, intending to distribute it evenly among the workers at a later date. This precaution aimed to avoid unnecessary conflicts and maintain smooth progress. Though a seemingly small benefit, it could potentially spark disputes if not managed carefully. Chapter 1680. Exploration in the contemporary era. Firewood remained a vital resource for boiling water and cooking. The Wasteland Reclamation Project produced a substantial amount of firewood, sufficient for their families to use for 2 to 3 months. Deciding to distribute it equally at the end of the project seemed like a practical approach. City workers accustomed to short-term jobs might not be adept at reclamation work. Songshi, well-versed in the process, took the time to explain to Lu Qian, Lu Fu, and others the importance of overseeing the hired workers, cautioning them against injuries. Additionally, they needed to ensure that workers dug out all underground routes during reclamation, preventing potential issues with wild grass and bushes growing in the future. Motivated and in high spirits, Lu Fu, with Lu Qian accompanying him, took charge of controlling the 40 hired workers. Taking advantage of favorable weather, they swiftly initiated the project. Initially, they focused on cutting down trees, shrubs, and grass, piling them together for later use. After preparing the firewood, they segregated it. The remaining unwanted materials, such as grass, leaves, and miscellaneous items, were set ablaze. With the ground cleared, they proceeded to dig and clean up roots and grass. Given the workers' lack of farming experience, the initial days were marked by chaos and numerous issues. Fortunately, the employees, enticed by the generous salary, were willing to learn and adapt. Collaborating with Songshi and Lu Fu, Xiaoxian drew a map, designating an area for building a courtyard. The envisioned courtyard would include spaces for a farming room, warehouse, fruit drying area, fruit processing workshop, duty dormitory, and a small kitchen. Each space was to encompass around 3 mu of empty land. Furthermore, since the two locations were approximately 7 to 8 miles apart, Xiaoxian instructed Songshi to assess the terrain. After the cultivation was complete, she planned to construct a better road to connect the two areas. Songshi and Lu Fu duly took note of the directive. On another front, Xiaoxian tasked Sun Bai and Sun Qian with inquiring about peppers and star anise trees. She aimed to procure according to the demand for 10,000 mu each, acknowledging that obtaining such quantities might prove challenging. Since Yuzhong lacked these crops, she had to search for them in An's province. While cultivating them initially might pose a challenge, Xiaoxian speculated that once she found the saplings, she could potentially propagate them using branches in her space, allowing for an expansion in numbers. In the span of 7 to 8 days, Xiaoxian's recovery period concluded. In her idle moments, she strolled through the garden, observing it nonchalantly. Since the last incident involving the young master, Mrs. Guan seemed to have learned her lesson, as Xiaoxian no longer encountered him in the garden. After a brief reflection, Xiaoxian asked Li Xia and Li Qiu, "I've been recuperating for the past few days, so it seems appropriate for each family to pay a visit, right?" Understanding the significance of basic social interactions as the wife of the prefect, Xiaoxian, being cautious about her health, intended to visit the affluent families. Even if she couldn't personally attend, she planned to send high-ranking maids and servants to extend her regards with invitations. Chapter 1681. None came, however. Xiaoxian had been preoccupied with her exploration plans, causing her to overlook the absence of visitors for the past few days. Li Xia and Li Qiu chuckled at her realization. "Madam, you've just noticed this now? Those people aren't worth worrying about, madam. Don't let it bother you." "Exactly." Xiaoxian joined in the laughter, acknowledging her lack of popularity among certain circles. "It appears I'm not winning any popularity contests. Their families are quite organized. Ask Sun Ba to find out what's going on. I don't mind if they come or not, but I'd like to know the reason behind their organized actions." Li Xia agreed and promptly conveyed the message to Sun Bai. While Xiaoxian had momentarily forgotten about the issue, Xiao Yunduan had not. He had instructed Sun Bai to investigate the matter 2 days earlier. However, he chose not to mention it to Xiaoxian, hoping she would forget about it. Upon hearing Lixia's report, Xiaoxian quickly received the results. According to Sun Bai's findings, Old Lady Fan had taken the initiative to inform the Hua family and the Mei family. She subtly suggested that they distance themselves from the new prefect, fearing the couple might not take them seriously. The Mei family and the Hua family, being local powerhouses, resisted any changes in An's province. They were displeased with Xiao Yunduan's arrival and had initially aimed to promote Deputy Prefect Guan to the position of prefect. After all, Deputy Prefect Guan had been in An's province for many years, fostering relationships with the locals. Choosing a familiar face seemed more favorable to them. In the preceding years, the imperial court had rotated prefects in Anne's prefecture with remarkable frequency, resembling a constant turnover of personnel, revolving doors, and a game of musical chairs. The local families were growing impatient with the persistent changes. Adapting to a new prefect repeatedly was undesirable for everyone. Moreover, Anne's province's unique geographical location and the composition of its personnel made it challenging for any prominent family to establish and develop here without engaging in some questionable dealings. This complexity further fueled the discontent. Initially, Deputy Prefect Guan saw some progress in his aspirations. With more effort, he anticipated success. However, the imperial court abruptly altered its decision, appointing this new primus. This sudden turn of events not only shattered Deputy Prefect Guan's aspirations, but also left the major families profoundly disinterested. Given the circumstances, their animosity toward Xiao Yunduan deepened. Now, with Old Lady Fan suggesting that they ignore Madame Xiao and assess Lord Xiao, everyone readily agreed. After all, testing him couldn't hurt. Lord Xiao wouldn't take drastic measures over such a trivial matter, right? Moreover, since the Fan family held a prominent position, it was necessary to show respect to Old Lady Fan. The reason behind Old Lady Fan's actions didn't surprise them. She had always been proud and capricious. Even if no one had offended her, simply disliking someone was enough reason for her to launch an attack. If the new Lord Xiao was disliked by Old Lady Fan, she would intensify her aversion. The other family clans typically followed the intentions of the three heads. If the three heads didn't act, the other families refrained from doing so as well. This was why Xiao Xian found herself so unpopular. For days, no one came to visit. Xiao Xian's decision to hire people for land exploration only fueled the family's displeasure. Were they truly going to settle here? Chapter 1682. If not the Fan family, it would be someone else. During the process of wasteland reclamation, numerous individuals casually passed by and expressed their curiosity. However, the hired workers, unaware of Xiao Xian's plans for planting on the reclaimed land, were questioned by some of the onlookers, including Song Shi, Lu Fu, and others. Following Xiao Xian's instructions, the workers refrained from revealing any details to the inquisitive onlookers, intensifying their curiosity even more. The sight of so much wasteland being opened simultaneously sparked speculation. What could possibly be planted on such a large scale? Aside from corn and soybeans, the options seemed limited in such mountainous terrain. Did the prefect and his wife lack knowledge about the low productivity of such arid land? Were they anticipating a substantial profit from this meager harvest? Many onlookers believed the prefect and his wife were ignorant and ill-informed about the challenges of the region. Suggestions were made about investing the money elsewhere, perhaps in purchasing a shop. The high salary offered for a temporary job, along with seemingly extravagant provisions like steamed buns and bone and vegetable soup for lunch, were deemed wasteful. Countless pairs of eyes observed the proceedings, eager to witness the outcome. When Xiao Xian received the news from Sun Bai, she was initially perplexed. Had she offended the Fan family? Was the Fan family adamantly against her? Upon reflection, she acknowledged that there was likely no family clan exempt from apprehension about confronting them. If not the Fan family, another family would undoubtedly step forward. This situation felt like a deliberate test. Recalling Mrs. Guan's proud demeanor when they crossed paths in the garden 2 days ago, Xiao Xian suddenly grasped the situation. Mrs. Guan had likely spread some unfavorable information about her, contributing to the current scenario. She was openly mocking Xiao Xian for being ostracized and targeted. Xiao Xian shook her head, dismissing the mocking remarks. She had no time to concern herself with such trivialities. Instead, she focused on managing her own land. Testing her was of little importance to her in the grand scheme. In the meantime, Xiao Yunwan had advised Deputy Prefect not to work and to discipline his son, intending to address the trouble caused in the office the next day. The high-ranking staff in the state office were supposed to be assigned to the 6 intermediate departments. Each room had a designated person in charge, known as the Sutra Inheritor, overseeing clerks, scribes, and other staff. Typically, each room had several clerks, and there were varying numbers based on the actual needs, but it generally did not exceed 20. In addition to these 6 branches, the core offices of the prefecture below the deputy prefect, there were other roles such as those overseeing finances, education, prisons, and warehouses. More than 10 leaders handled these responsibilities, along with bailiffs, constables, gatekeepers, coroners, and various servants. For a prefecture office to function normally, a considerable number of people were required. Given Anne's province's larger territory due to its geographical location, it necessitated a sizable administrative staff. Deputy Prefect Guan's long-standing tenure added a layer of complexity to the relationships within the office. It appeared that Deputy Prefect Guan sought to assert control over Xiao Yunduan, the prefect, in an attempt to find a pretext for Xiao Yunduan to grant him a break. Consequently, Deputy Prefect Guan audaciously disrupted the proper functioning of the entire government office. Chapter 1683. Countless people waited to see Xiao Yunduan after Deputy Prefect Guan took a break. More than half of the officials scheduled to work that day applied for leave, with even the bailiffs making only sporadic appearances. Despite the disruption, 3 groups of people showed up to file lawsuits on the same day. Before heading to court for the trial, Xiao Yunduan had someone leave the necessary documents for him to review. These individuals had all been influenced by Deputy Prefect Guan's bribes, making them reluctant to simply leave without causing a commotion. However, Xiao Yunduan, being the prefect, was not bound by any rule that mandated immediate interrogation upon receiving legal documents, even with the promotion looming in the next 10 days or half a month. Exceptions were only made for murder cases or large-scale armed conflicts resulting in significant casualties. Deputy Prefect Guan, audacious as he might be, wouldn't dare to entangle himself in a murder case, knowing it would jeopardize his position. Xiao Yunduan had a steadfast stance, and any attempt to create a disturbance would result in public punishment. This impasse led to a temporary halt in the case trial, much to the disdain of Deputy Prefect Guan. Xiao Yunduan's resolute demeanor frustrated him, but there was little he could do. Despite Anne's province's unique circumstances, the absence of numerous officials from the office would inevitably take its toll. Deputy Prefect Guan smirked, realizing that Xiao Yunduan's authority as Lord Prefect might not hold much sway in Anne's prefecture. The title seemed less influential than he had initially thought. Countless onlookers eagerly anticipated Xiao Yunduan's next move. However, Xiao Yunduan remained unfazed by the scrutiny. His primary concern was the upcoming spring plowing, and having made all necessary preparations, he was unperturbed by the surrounding chaos. The imperial court had always maintained a laissez-faire attitude towards Anne's province. Merely finding officials willing to serve in this remote region was considered a commendable feat as long as there was no rebellion causing widespread loss of life. The court viewed everything else as trivial. Xiao Yunduan aimed to restructure the constables and third-class officers in one sweeping move. Scribes, albeit important, were replaceable. Despite the limited scholarly presence in Anne's province, finding substitutes for resigning scribes was feasible, even though it might initially lead to a manpower shortage and increased workload. His primary concern, however, rested on the bailiffs and constabliciero, the armed forces he could directly control. It was crucial that they remained under his influence, staffed by individuals loyal to him. Notably, Zheng Seng, Wu Guan, Yang Mu, Sun Bai, Sun Qian, and others were already part of his trusted circle. With this strategy in mind, Xiao Yunduan promptly signed the necessary documents and directed the bailiffs to deliver them to those currently on leave. He mandated their return to duty the following day, emphasizing that if anyone needed to reapply for leave, they must do so in person. By avoiding such responsibility, an official risked open disrespect towards his superior, making him unsuitable for the state office. In such cases, the prefect would display mercy by providing an additional 2 months' salary, urging the individual to promptly leave. Deputy Prefect Guan was well aware of these developments and couldn't help but sneer. Lord Xiao's actions were intriguing. He bypassed the scribes and directed his frustration towards the bailiffs. Perhaps he understood that the scribes wouldn't easily yield to his demands. Chapter 1684. Whoever believes is silly. Did he believe that by channeling his frustration towards a few bailiffs and setting an example, the scribes would cower in fear? What a ludicrous notion. Despite Deputy Prefect Guan's efforts, none of the bailiffs left. Each one had their document. However, the situation was not taken seriously. After a round of discussions, Deputy Prefect Guan's trusted aide received instructions and confidently assured that there wouldn't be any issues. The Lord of Prefect wouldn't dare to dismiss all 70 of them simultaneously. The idea of firing them all raised practical concerns. How many essential positions in the government office would be left vacant? Even Constable Ding and Constable Yu were unable to attend. What was there to fear? Convinced by Deputy Prefect Guan's assurances, the bailiffs and constables believed the prefect's threat held no real weight. No prefect could maintain a lengthy tenure in An's province, and if Deputy Prefect Guan had something to say, it had to be heeded. Lord Xiao had claimed he would stay for an extended period, but such declarations were met with skepticism. Few believed him. The next day, not a single bailiff reported for duty, rendering Xiao Yunduan's documents a laughingstock. Upon learning of this outcome, Deputy Prefect Guan was nearly overcome with laughter. Lord Xiao, in his youthful naivety, failed to comprehend the dynamics of this jurisdiction. Xiao Yunduan was taken aback by the results, realizing that the situation was even more dire than he had anticipated. However, he acknowledged that such a worst-case scenario had crossed his mind before. Xiao Yunduan didn't mince words, addressing everyone absent that day, including the 2 constables. On the same day, a notice was prominently displayed at the government office entrance and several city gates, announcing the recruitment of bailiffs. The news took everyone by surprise. Was Lord Xiao truly unyielding? Did he comprehend the potential fallout from this decision? Deputy Prefect Guan, shocked and angered, berated Xiao Yunduan privately before attempting to dissuade him. He carefully explained the repercussions and advised against impulsivity. Xiao Yunduan listened in silence before posing question. Deputy Prefect Guan, are you suggesting that, as the Lord of Prefect, I should bow to the first-class bailiffs or go back on my word? How would I then command the respect to be a leader? Deputy Prefect Guan felt a twinge of irritation but sneered slightly. Lord, firing more than half of the bailiffs at once might disrupt the government office's functioning. If something untoward happens, Xiao Yunduan responded sternly. We are already in the process of recruiting replacements. It's a few days of hard work. What harm can it do? Unless someone is scheming in the shadows. He continued with a cold tone. If anyone dares to undermine this effort, let them try. I won't let them off easily if I find out. Furious, Deputy Prefect Guan sensed an implied threat, but restrained his anger. He cautioned, Lord Xiao, you must tread carefully. Firing so many people at once could lead to trouble. People won't easily accept losing their jobs abruptly. They may seek justice. Justice? Xiao Yunduan scoffed. Deputy Prefect, are you jesting? I provided them with documents. Their signatures are on these documents, and the papers are still in my possession. I offered them a chance, yet they scorned me, showed disrespect, and now talk of justice. Chapter 1685. Reject. Deputy Prefect Guan remarked, you can't overlook this. Being young and unfamiliar with local governance, you might not realize the unique dynamics of officials here compared to those in the capital. Lord, officials in this region heavily rely on the lower-ranking officers to execute tasks. If you proceed without proper explanation, won't it disillusion everyone? In the future, it might pose significant challenges. Lord, it's wise to reconsider your decision. Xiao Yunduan sneered, questioning. Deputy Prefect, Are you offering advice or issuing a threat? Deputy Prefect Guan chuckled. It's advice out of goodwill, of course. After all, I'm your assistant. If there's anything you're uncertain about, it's my duty to remind you. That's how collaboration works. Thank you for your well-intentioned advice, Deputy Prefect Guan. Xiao Yunduan replied with a half-smile. I want yield to subordinates with malicious intent who defy my orders. They have chosen their path, and they must face the consequences. If anyone dares to cause trouble, let them try. Deputy Prefect Guan's expression soured. Suppressing his anger, he forced a smile. Since you've made up your mind, I have nothing more to say. Xiao Yunduan nodded. You may leave. Holding back his frustration, Deputy Prefect Guan respectfully cupped his hands and exited, his face dark with displeasure. Xiao Yunduan issued an announcement, directing late officers to take over the responsibilities. Those arriving within 2 days would receive 2 months' salary, while those delayed beyond that period would forfeit the bonus. Simultaneously, recruitment notices were posted throughout the process. Xiao Yunduan expanded the team by including Sun Bai, Sun Qian, Zheng Seng, Wu Guan, Yang Mu, and 7 or 8 of Sun Bai and Sun Qian subordinates. Sun Bai, Sun Qian, and Zheng Seng were designated as constables, and Hang Xingshan, a constable, received a promotion. The 4 of them assumed leadership roles, each bringing a few constables to carry out the tasks assigned. It seemed like they had stirred up a hornet's nest this time. Not only were the bailiffs below agitated, but Constable Ding and Constable Yu were also visibly concerned. Some sneaked around, while others made no attempt to conceal their unease, rushing to the back of the government office to seek Deputy Prefect Guan for guidance. Deputy Prefect Guan felt overwhelmed, his thoughts in disarray, exhausted from managing the situation. He hadn't anticipated Xiao Yunduan's swift actions, leaving no room for maneuvering. However, he remained skeptical that Xiao Yunduan would actually terminate so many positions. Don't be hasty. Go back and wait patiently. This Lord Prefect is bluffing. Just observe. He won't endure for long. Don't fret. I won't abandon you. The law doesn't punish the masses. Don't bow your heads now. Otherwise, all your efforts will be in vain. Let's give it 2 more days. Just these 2 days. Recruit? Huh. If he can't find anyone, who else can he employ? Isn't it simple? You've served as bailiffs for so long. Don't you know if the office can attract recruits? The words of Deputy Prefect Guan provided a sudden realization to everyone. With sneers and newfound confidence, they departed. Indeed, Deputy Prefect Guan's assurance instilled confidence. It seemed implausible that he would deceive such a large group. In truth, many were beginning to regret their involvement secretly. Not all of these troublemakers were Deputy Prefect Guan's trusted aides. Bribing individuals to be confidants required considerable effort and money, and these bailiffs were not in a position to demand such resources. Chapter 1686. Ask Deputy Prefect Guan, Constable Ding, and Constable, you were considered Deputy Prefect Guan's trusted aides, along with a few other individuals who displayed notable competence. The remaining bailiffs, skeptical of Lord Xiao's commitment to a lengthy tenure in the region, anticipated working under Deputy Prefect Guan in the future, leading them to naturally align with him. However, it wouldn't be accurate to claim they were truly loyal or shared a common adversary with Deputy Prefect Guan. To their surprise, Lord Xiao appeared genuinely committed to the changes. While the job salary wasn't exceptionally generous, it wasn't meager either. Additionally, being associated with a public office brought social recognition, enhancing one's prestige in the community. The abrupt loss of this opportunity was disheartening, leaving them in a state of anxiety. In their desperation, other concerns took a back seat. Their immediate focus was finding Deputy Prefect Guan and seeking an explanation for the unfolding situation. Though not everyone sought Deputy Prefect Guan's counsel, a group of over 10 individuals bombarded him with questions, enough to test Deputy Prefect Guan's endurance. Numerous bailiffs, absent from their government office duties, converged on Deputy Prefect Guan. Xiao Yunduan was well aware of this orchestrated response. He couldn't feign ignorance about the mastermind behind this upheaval. Deputy Prefect Guan. Deputy Prefect Guan, caught in a web of embarrassment and anger, had to maintain a facade of innocence before Xiao Yunduan. The fear of Xiao Yunduan's perception gnawed at him, knowing that some observers would find his predicament amusing. His expression turned sinister, as he could only hope for divine intervention to navigate through this precarious game. Other Wizard Constable Ding and Constable Yu joined the gathering as well. Their long-standing amicable relationship with Deputy Prefect Guan was rooted in mutual benefits, although over time, it had developed into a somewhat genuine rapport. Observing their arrival, Deputy Prefect Guan, half jokingly and half seriously, expressed his dissatisfaction. Others may be ignorant, but to jump to conclusions from insignificant evidence, panicking over a minor issue. Why are you also causing trouble? This isn't like you. Constable Ding and Constable Yu felt a twinge of embarrassment and discontent. Without Deputy Prefect Guan's influence, they wouldn't have fallen out with the new prefect. In private discussions, they lamented their involvement and regretted their actions. The conflict seemed more like a power struggle between Deputy Prefect Guan and the new prefect, and they questioned why they were dragged into it. Despite their previous camaraderie with Deputy Prefect Guan, the extent of their relationship did not warrant this level of involvement. Reflecting on the situation, they realized that Lord Xiao was unlike the previous prefects. What if he was genuinely committed to staying for an extended period? Regret sank in as they anticipated strained relations, even if they reconciled later. They would likely be under constant scrutiny, needing to tread carefully to avoid any missteps that could be used against them. They concluded that getting involved in the matter initially was a mistake. If they wanted to participate, they should have found a way to avoid directly opposing the Lord of the Prefect. Now, it was too late to backtrack, and they were committed to supporting Deputy Prefect Guan, hoping that Lord Xiao would eventually relent. Constable Ding forced a smile and addressed Deputy Prefect Guan. Lord, considering Lord Xiao's assertiveness, we naturally harbor some doubts. Please enlighten us, and let's strategize to develop a countermeasure. With a plan in place, we won't be caught off guard, right? Chapter 1687. Lord Deputy Prefect, you mean that's right. Constable Yu sneered. Lord Xiao is quick. He's already appointed a new constable. Ha! Even if this storm blows over, will we still have a place here? Both constables were tinged with anger and jealousy. Deputy Prefect Guan glanced at them and remarked, even with your presence, do you think you're safe? Lord Xiao is promoting those around him. I suspect he already harbors such intentions. Ha! Even if you remain unscathed, he might find a reason to push you aside, searching for fault in a straw. Why not make some noise and challenge him? That way, you can carve your own path. Stunned, the constable's hearts sank. Indeed, Deputy Prefect Guan observed their reactions coldly, understanding their thoughts. Having a couple more constables is not a significant issue for us. However, some individuals aren't deserving of such positions. Lord Xiao is young, inexperienced as a local official, and ignorant. He can act recklessly. Even if it's for the sake of the common people, we have a responsibility. Don't you agree? The constables seemed to grasp the point, but remained somewhat uncertain. Deputy Prefect Guan chuckled, dismissing their concerns with a wave of his hand. I'm not implying anything else. I just believe that some people aren't fit to be constables. Lord Xiao is young and lacks understanding. Let him witness the reality. Let him see that certain individuals can't withstand scrutiny. Why should they hold such positions? Constable Ding and Constable Yu exchanged glances, comprehending the message. Deputy Prefect Guan added, procrastinating won't serve us well. Lord Xiao, if you grasp this concept early on, the government office can return to normal sooner rather than later. Don't you think? They both nodded in agreement. Constable Ding hesitated briefly. Lord, is Theseo appropriate? What could go wrong? Deputy Prefect Guan chuckled. Regardless of what unfolds, it won't implicate us, will it? Ding, and you were enlightened and broke into smiles. Lord is absolutely right. Ha ha. Yes, whatever unfolds, we're not involved. Leaving the backyard of the state government office, the two constables ventured off to strategize. They decided to target Hang Xingshan first. Hang Xingshan had been promoted by the previous prefect. If the former prefect had remained in An's province for an extended period, Hang Xingshan would have inevitably become a constable. This was common knowledge. Therefore, Constable Ding and Constable Yu harbored a long-standing resentment toward Hang Xingshan. Surprisingly, the new prefect displayed a keen eye and promptly promoted Hang Xingshan. Or perhaps, Hang Xingshan had harbored ill feelings towards them and clandestinely provided information to the lord of the prefect in exchange for these benefits. With this perspective, the constables felt justified in teaching Hang Xingshan a lesson. After all, who gave him the right to scheme against others behind their backs? Was he truly worthy of holding the position of constable? Constable Ding and Constable Yu had long desired to reprimand Hang Xingshan. Despite their previous attempts to create difficulties for him, Hang Xingshan always managed to avoid getting caught in any suspicious activities. Now, an opportunity had finally presented itself. However, what the two constables did not anticipate was that, even when attacking him together, they would be unable to overpower Hang Xingshan. Chapter 1688. Mantis stalks the cicada Ding, and you were seething with anger as they scolded Hang Xingshan furiously, threatening him to vacate the government office. Arrow Lord Xiao won't linger in An's province for long. You won't be able to rely on him indefinitely. If you know what's good for you, leave now. Otherwise, once Lord Xiao departs, your exit won't be so trouble-free. Hang Xingshan paid no heed to their threats and retorted, if you dare to attack again, don't blame me for being ruthless. Ding, and you were further incensed. However, the ordeal did not end there. After Hang Xingshan departed, they found themselves assaulted once more. The attackers concealed their faces, but the intensity in their eyes radiated danger. Their demeanor made it clear they were not to be trifled with. Faced with the assailants' cold gaze and an air of menace, Ding and Yu felt a chill of fear. Before they could make any inquiries, a barrage of punches and kicks rained down on them. Helpless, they rolled on the ground, screaming in agony, unable to mount any defense. The assailants sneered and departed silently. After a while, Ding and Yu struggled to their feet. Their faces were unscathed, but their bodies ached in every imaginable way. It felt as though someone had disassembled their bones. Pale-faced, sweating profusely, and trembling, they tried to comprehend what had just happened. Who were those two people Hero? I don't know Hero despite claiming ignorance. The duo couldn't dismiss the notion of a sinister connection. They had barely caused trouble for Hang Xingshan and had yet to exit the alley when they were brutally assaulted. The words left behind by the two attackers were more than just an idle threat. Lord Xiao Hero, were they working on behalf of Lord Xiao? Had Lord Xiao been keeping a watchful eye on them? If Hang Xingshan hadn't confronted them, these two individuals would have intervened. Shock registered in the eyes of Ding and Yu as they exchanged glances. They were now consumed with regret, their internal turmoil verging on turning their intestines green. What kind of individuals did Lord Xiao have in his service? If they had foreseen this outcome, they wouldn't have succumbed to Deputy Prefect Guan's manipulation. Regrets surged, but it was too late to undo their actions. Not content with merely threatening Hang Xingshan, they were also incited by Deputy Prefect Guan. Numerous bailiffs followed a young man aspiring to join their ranks, attempting to intimidate him and nullify his registration. Yet the tables turned, and they found themselves either battered or delivered to Xiao Yunduan. 8 individuals were escorted to Xiao Yunduan, where they faced public interrogation. Each of them received a beating 20 times before being expelled from the room. The incident triggered a widespread uproar. Someone had been covertly influencing Xiao Yunduan, spreading detrimental rumors about the new lord of the prefect. They accused him of being haughty, arbitrary, and unreasonable, claiming he instigated conflict upon arrival, resulting in the departure of over half the bailiffs. Allegedly, These bailiffs were driven away because they refused to appease him or provide illicit benefits. However, the truth was far from the rumors. Lord Xiao had given these individuals an opportunity to reform, yet they squandered it. Unwilling to compromise, they resorted to a strike, attempting to leverage the law doesn't punish the masses to extract additional benefits from Lord Xiao. Facing their obstinance, Lord Xiao chose not to yield to such a malevolent force. Instead, he opted to part ways with these unscrupulous officers and initiate fresh recruitments. The extent of their moral degradation became evident as they targeted those who had signed up, resorting to threats and violence in an attempt to force them out. The intention was clear. Lord Xiao would beg them to return. The sheer despicability and sinister nature of their actions left a stain on their reputation that could not easily be erased. Chapter 1689. Kindness and Might. Xiao Yunduan's voice cut through the air with cold precision. These 20 strokes are for you novices. If there's a next transgression, you'll face 30 strokes and 3 months of imprisonment. Subsequent offenses will warrant 40 strokes and a year behind bars. If you doubt whether I keep my word, feel free to test it. The 8 battered individuals were unceremoniously ejected from the government office, limping away and supporting each other in their hasty retreat. The others were paralyzed with fear, initially hesitant to entertain any thoughts. However, unable to part with the stability of the job and occasional small perks, some gathered in groups of 3 to 5, seeking mercy from Lord Xiao at the state office. Xiao Yunduan kept them waiting for 3 hours. Once they finally met, and after they had kowtowed and pleaded for mercy, he sneered, "Regretting it now? What were you thinking earlier?" Ashamed and nervous, they lowered their heads, hesitant to utter a word. After a while, Xiao Yunduan spoke calmly. "You are all familiar with this place, and not all the spots have been filled yet. There's still 30 openings, first come, first served. Since you acknowledge your wrongdoing, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt for now. Go back, write a confession letter, sign it, and submit it." "Yes, yes. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for your kindness, Lord." Xiao Yunduan sneered again. "I'm not finished. When you return, regardless of your current position, you will be reassigned and start from the bottom. No objections are allowed. Additionally, I will cease the board game. It will affect the province, but your salaries will be fined. Each of you will face a 2-month penalty. Are you satisfied? If not, you don't have to come back." This time, many of those incited by Deputy Prefect Guan to cause trouble held minor leadership roles. They had bet on the wrong outcome, ensuring that even if they returned, they could kiss their leadership positions goodbye. Furthermore, a salary penalty awaited them. 2 months was neither lenient nor severe euro. It struck a balance chord. The directive to start from the bottom left all of them dumbfounded. Xiao Yunduan's sneer accompanied his cold words as he lowered his eyes and declared, "You underestimated me, thinking that a simple apology and kowtowing would erase the trouble you attempted to stir up. Were it not for your past contributions to the state office, I wouldn't have afforded you this chance. Reflect on it. If, upon careful consideration, you decide to return, do so. If not, pretend this never happened. I won't coerce you. There's only one condition. Be obedient henceforth. Otherwise, I won't be lenient." Yes, yes, Lord Euro, their hearts quivered as they kowtowed, rose, and retreated. Once outside the state office, they exchanged uneasy glances. News of the incident swiftly circulated. Urged by anxiety, one individual spent a few copper coins to enlist the help of cultivated talent Lottie, who wrote a letter of repentance and signed it. Hastily, the individual sought mercy at the government office, expressing a desire to return. With a trailblazer in tow, others grew increasingly anxious. A collective rush ensued towards the state office. Xiao Yunduan issued an order closing the acceptance of further confessions after reaching the count of 30. Ultimately, only 30 individuals returned to the government office, leaving the remaining 30 to find alternative means of livelihood. In less than 5 days, the entire narrative of the situation underwent a complete reversal. Chapter 1690. Who can take it? Xiao Yunduan seamlessly assumed control of the constables and bailiffs in the court, entrusting Sun Bai, Sun Qian, and Zheng Sang with the responsibility of reassigning and training the new recruits, promising a swift transformation. Meanwhile, the 30 individuals who had left the court harbored regret but dared not hold animosity towards Xiao Yinduan. The Lord of the Prefect proved to be formidable and not to be trifled with. There was no justification for resentment, and any lingering hatred within their ranks was confined and ineffectual. After the stern lesson given to the 8 instigators, they were thoroughly frightened into submission. The remaining dissenters lacked the courage to act recklessly. Despite their reluctance to give up, a collective movement emerged as they sought Deputy Prefect Guan for redress. Instigated by his previous encouragement, they now demanded an explanation and compensation. Formerly revered, Deputy Prefect Guan found himself surrounded and targeted by the very individuals he had sought to manipulate against Xiao Yinduan. Frustration and anger overwhelmed Deputy Prefect Guan, who now faced the consequence of his own machinations. The assertiveness of the 30 individuals, each voicing their grievances, tormented him. Mrs. Guan, frightened by the commotion, took refuge in the bedroom, venting her anger through gritted teeth. The turmoil caused by these disgruntled individuals was enough to drive anyone to the brink. Deputy Prefect Guan found himself in a sorry state, unable to deny his role in instigating the situation. The disgruntled individuals, fueled by anger, sought him out for retribution. However, when it came to compensating them, Deputy Prefect Guan was resistant. He deemed these commoners foolish for mishandling a straightforward task and implicating him. The idea of compensating them seemed ludicrous to him, and he was unwilling to part with his accumulated wealth to appease their grievances. Expressing his frustration, Deputy Prefect Guan sternly reprimanded the group, asserting that Lord Xiao's recruitment efforts were merely a facade. He urged them to maintain composure, assuring them that he could influence Lord Xiao on their behalf. Despite initial skepticism, Deputy Prefect Guan, wielding his authority, used a combination of persuasion and coercion to convince the majority to leave. Their reluctance to abandon the stable jobs and a lingering hope that Deputy Prefect Guan's assurances might hold true contributed to their hesitant departure. However, a handful of individuals at the back harbored resentment and launched an attack on Deputy Prefect Guan. Unconvinced by his promises and aware of his deceit, they were not swayed by his attempts to manipulate the situation. Chapter 1691. His heart hurts. Deputy Prefect Guan probably didn't have such a big face in front of Lord Xiao. Who was he trying to fool? These few people were usually crafty and cunning. Deputy Prefect Guan also understood that it was impossible for him to not give up something at all after this matter had become like this. After a round of competition, Deputy Prefect Guan agreed to give these 6 people 10 taels each. However, they had to help him stop the others. No matter what method they used, they had to stop the others from looking for him. The 6 of them felt that 10 taels of silver per person was too little, so they refused. The 2 sides haggled and finally settled on 20 taels each. Deputy Prefect Guan originally wanted to give half, and the other half after this matter was completely over. However, the 6 of them refused. Deputy Prefect Guan could not dissuade someone who had nothing on shoulders, so he could only grit his teeth and give the money. A total of 120 taels. His heart ached so much that it trembled. One had to know that his monthly salary was only 30 taels of silver. He still had 1 or 2 small shops in the city. He could earn about 20 taels a month. This was his normal monthly income. Every year, there would be some benefits from time to time. He could also take some from the public accounts. However, no matter what, 120 taels was definitely a huge sum to him. Mrs. Guan's heart ached when she found out. A few days ago, she had taken a fancy to 2 new brocades from Jiangnan. One cost 36 taels of silver. She hesitated for a while, but could not bear to buy it. But who knew that in the blink of an eye, 120 taels of silver would be wasted? Then I might as well buy myself brocade. These people really dare to speak. Mrs. Guan scolded the officers, Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian, apparently blaming them for the situation. The 6 individuals proved ineffective in stopping the others. Someone inadvertently revealed that they had each received 20 taels of silver as compensation from Deputy Prefect Guan. The revelation sparked envy among those who hadn't received compensation, fueling resentment towards Deputy Prefect Guan. Green with envy, they rushed to the backyard of the provincial government office, demanding compensation from Deputy Prefect Guan. They insisted on receiving at least 20 taels of silver. When the butler reported that these individuals had returned, Deputy Prefect Guan sensed trouble. However, he couldn't turn them away, fearing that they might expose him if they refused to leave. If even a fig leaf was torn off, he would be too ashamed to face Lord Xiao in the future. Pinching his nose, Deputy Prefect Guan reluctantly allowed them in. He scolded those who didn't act after receiving money, but had to endure as they demanded their share. The temptation of 20 taels of silver had turned them relentless, creating a tsunami of demands that almost drowned Deputy Prefect Guan. Regardless of what Deputy Prefect Guan said, nobody believed him this time. They refused to listen and clamored for the demanded 20 taels of silver, not a single tael less. Chapter 1692. Heavy losses. Deputy Prefect Guan stood firm, refusing to yield, which only fueled the crowd's excitement. In the chaos, a porcelain bottle on a chest of drawers fell to the ground and shattered. Taking advantage of the moment, Deputy Prefect Guan intensified the situation, insisting that the broken porcelain bottle was worth 1,000 taels of silver and demanded compensation. This further angered the crowd, and chaos ensued. An unknown person initiated the fighting, and soon the entire living room turned into a battleground. Deputy Prefect Guan and the butler became victims of the violence, bearing the brunt of the attacks. Their cries for help went unanswered as the servants rushed in, causing the attackers to disperse and flee. The house was left in disarray, with overturned furniture and shattered artifacts strewn across the floor. Even Deputy Prefect Guan's jade pendant had been snatched away. Hiding in the back, Mrs. Guan had heard the commotion but was too scared to intervene. When the attackers finally dispersed, she rushed out and was shocked at the scene before her. Seeing her bruised and battered husband, she exclaimed, "Oh my God! What sins have we committed?" Hurrying to assist her husband, Mrs. Guan expressed her concern, while Nanny Ding and Zhen Zhu helped Deputy Prefect Guan onto a chair. The sight of the damaged living room added to Mrs. Guan's distress. She exclaimed, "Io, how did it end up like this? Ridiculous, this is outrageous." Despite not being genuine antiques, the items in the living room held value, making the damage significant and heartbreaking. The pair of Beauty's hairpins and plum bottles alone were valued at more than 100 taels of silver. Additionally, there was a jade mountain figure, hairpins, and a white jade with an elephant chime, with respective values of 80 taels and 110 taels. While the rest of the items were not as exquisite, they still held value, each worth dozens of taels. In total, the losses amounted to quite a substantial sum. Regarding the furniture, all of it had been forcefully kicked to the ground, resulting in numerous bumps and bruises. Some damages were subtle and could potentially be repaired by a skilled artisan, but others were irreparable and necessitated replacement. The overall loss easily reached 2,000 taels of silver, leaving Mrs. Guan on the verge of tears. Deputy Prefect Guan, groaning from the pain, soon realized the severity of his injuries. His left arm, when moved, caused intense pain, indicating a probable fracture. Urgently, he called for a doctor to attend to his injuries. As Deputy Prefect Guan assessed the room, he was horrified to see that half of a calligraphy painting hanging on the wall had been torn apart, with only the other half still swaying. He exclaimed, "Ah, my painting! My painting!" This artwork, crafted by a renowned artist from the previous dynasty, had been a prized possession. Deputy Prefect Guan had acquired it as a symbol of prestige, surpassing the combined value of everything else in the room. Devastated by the irreparable damage to the cherished painting, Deputy Prefect Guan was overwhelmed with despair and fainted before he could catch his breath. Mrs. Guan, panicked and distraught, continuously called out to her husband, "Old Master." The doctor arrived just in time, and Deputy Prefect Guan slowly regained consciousness. Chapter 1693. Deputy Prefect Guan's bitterness. Mrs. Guan patted her chest, letting out a relieved sigh. "That scared me to death. Old Master, don't be sad. It'll settle the score with those troublemakers later. None of them can escape," Mrs. Guan said with resentment. Determined, she decided that even if those individuals had to face bankruptcy and sell themselves as slaves, she would make sure they compensated for their losses. Otherwise, they would all end up in jail. Deputy Prefect Guan felt extremely frustrated. "Shut up, and let me have some peace." His wife was unaware of the true value of the painting. If she knew, it might drive her to anger-induced demise. In the current situation, he dared not say anything. The idea of finding those responsible for compensation seemed plausible, but who could he hold accountable? The chaos of the moment made it unlikely for anyone to admit guilt willingly. Furthermore, if he pushed them into a corner and they fought back fiercely, he would be the one facing unfortunate consequences. He was no longer solely in charge of the prefect's office, and throwing her in jail was out of the question. Lord Xiao would never agree to it. Deputy Prefect Guan knew, without asking, that the bailiffs wouldn't follow his orders. Bitterness consumed him as he contemplated the situation. If only he had known the extent of those troublemakers' lawlessness, he would have paid them off. 20 taels per person, totaling 60 people, amounted to only 1,000 taels. Reflecting on it, he realized he had lost several thousand taels. His anger was overwhelming, and his heart ached at the loss. No, if he had given the 6 troublemakers 20 taels of silver from the start, 10 taels per person would likely have resolved the issue peacefully. The more Deputy Prefect Guan thought about it, the more his heart ached, and anger threatened to make him vomit blood. The doctor finally arrived, confirming Deputy Prefect Guan's suspicion of a fractured left arm accompanied by bruises. Sensing slight pain in his chest and abdomen, he opted to address all issues at once. The consultation and medicine incurred a few taels of silver. Observing her husband's sorry state, Mrs. Guan instructed someone to procure and prepare the medicine. Rising angrily, she declared, "I'm going to find Madame Xiao. Lord Xiao must intervene. If he refuses, I won't leave so easily." "Stop right there." Deputy Prefect Guan sternly halted her, his frown deepening. "Come back. You're not allowed to go. Old Mr. Euro, isn't it embarrassing enough? If Xiao Yinduan seizes this opportunity to investigate, think about it for yourself." Mrs. Guan was instantly rendered speechless. Could it be settled just like that? "Old Master, there's so much silver. We incurred substantial losses this time." Deputy Prefect Guan trembled, experiencing the pain once again. Not only physical pain, but also aching in his heart. The famous calligraphy and painting from the previous dynasty had cost him 4,600 taels of silver. What else? Deputy Prefect Guan glared at Mrs. Guan, sneering. "There's still a long way to go. Just wait and see." As long as she's still here, she'll recoup what she lost. This matter ends here. Don't mention it again. Taking a deep breath, he spoke in a low voice. "I want to rest well now and strive to recover as soon as possible to resume my duties in the government office. It's in your best interest to refrain from provoking me further." Mrs. Guan was left speechless. Feeling aggrieved, she mumbled, "This is so it was infuriating." After all the trouble, he ended up suffering a double loss. Deputy Prefect Guan had closed his eyes, signaling his exhaustion. He didn't want to talk anymore. Any further discussion would only fuel his anger. Unsatisfied, Mrs. Guan decided to visit Xiao Xian's place. Chapter 1694. Xiao Xian's I opened up. Mrs. Guan continued her tirade in front of Xiao Xian, portraying the former bailiffs as ruthless robbers who had assaulted her old master, resulting in his bone fracture. How dreadfully certainly, she omitted the truth. According to her version, the former bailiffs had gathered at their residence after being dismissed by Lord Xiao. Seeking old Master Guan's assistance, they were met with rejection. Surprisingly, They grew disheartened and initiated a brawlero. The more Mrs. Guan spoke, the more convinced she became of this narrative. Each word fueled her sense of injustice. Occasionally, she cast blameful glances at Xiao Xian, as if Xiao Yunduan was solely responsible for Deputy Prefect Guan's predicament, portraying Old Master's push, injury, and fracture as insufficient. Mrs. Guan also painted a poignant picture of her family's misery. Xiao Xian had her eyes opened. The dramatic performance seemed remarkably convincing. If she wasn't aware of the intricacies, she might have believed it. Sympathy filled Xiao Xian's eyes as she sighed. I never expected such a turn of events. We women lack the art of deception. These words circulate, and discerning their truth becomes challenging. Mrs. Guan, if you feel wronged, why not return and discuss it with Deputy Prefect Guan? We can present the case in court, letting the citizens impartially judge it in public. It would spare Mrs. Guan a lot of trouble. Implicitly, Xiao Xian made it clear she didn't believe a word of Mrs. Guan's story. So, accusing Lord Xiao and blaming him for the Guan family's woes was out of the question. Mrs. Guan was infuriated. Was there no sympathy at all? After her lengthy narration, this was the response she received. Had Lord Xiao been involved right from the beginning? If it weren't for Lord Xiao seeking personal revenge and the subsequent suspension of his old master, the chain of events leading to his current state wouldn't have unfolded. Naturally, the situation wouldn't have escalated to this point. At this juncture, Mrs. Guan refrained from demanding responsibility or compensation. Surprisingly, Madame Xiao displayed no embarrassment and dismissed the matter. Public trial? I wouldn't dare. Mrs. Guan sneered. Some people are shameless. If they don't participate, they'll face slander, and no amount of washing will make them clean. Poor old master. He dedicated himself to helping Lord Xiao, only to end up in such a state. Xiao Xian, growing annoyed, retorted, Mrs. Guan, if you believe Deputy Prefect Guan is unjustly treated in his position, why not suggest he resign? Though he hasn't been with our Lord for long, Lord Xiao has always been generous. He would undoubtedly receive a substantial compensation package and not suffer a loss. Mrs. Guan abruptly stood up, her expression changing. Madame Xiao, what do you mean? Are you trying to drive our old master away? Is this your idea or Lord Xiao's? Xiao Xian stared at her. I also want to ask Mrs. Guan, why have you come here to share all this nonsense with me? Don't insinuate anything. I don't comprehend your implications. Let's clear things up. You are the one feeling wronged. Why should I be the one accused of wanting to dismiss you? If you're aggrieved, you have a choice not to endure it. Chapter 1695. Embarrassed. Also, my lord has only been in An's province for a few days, but I'm unaware of Deputy Prefect Guan's contributions to my lord. Why don't you provide me with a detailed account, Mrs. Guan? Xiao Xian had extended courtesy by not immediately dismissing her. Didn't Mrs. Guan realize that whatever situation she was in, she had brought upon herself? What did it have to do with Xiao Xian's family? Rather than feeling guilty, Mrs. Guan had the audacity to approach her and spew unpleasant remarks. By not expelling her outright, Xiao Xian believed she had already shown considerable restraint. However, Mrs. Guan pushed her luck, shifting blame and accusing her husband of ingratitude. It was unreasonable to expect Xiao Xian to tolerate such behavior. Mrs. Guan seethed with anger, visibly trembling. Maintaining composure, Xiao Xian said calmly, "I'm going to rest. Mrs. Guan, please." She had no desire to engage with Mrs. Guan any longer. Mrs. Guan sneered and left without a backward glance. Fearful of her old master's scolding, Mrs. Guan refrained from sharing the encounter. Unable to find an outlet for her anger, she covered her face, and tears streamed down. Xiao Yunduan breathed a sigh of relief with the armed forces under his command. He wouldn't undertake anything without confidence. Even with the 60 troublesome bailiffs, he remained unfazed. In addition to Sun Bai, Sun Qian, Zhang Sang, and others, he had 50 trusted aides supplied by Meng Wanfu and Ding Xiang. These individuals operated covertly, residing discreetly in the heart of An City. Half of them lived in the mansion jointly acquired by him and Xiao Xian, taking great care to avoid detection. Hence, only Xiao Xian, Sun Bai, Sun Qian, Zheng Sang, and Songsha were privy to their existence. Xiao Yunduan had provided the list of former bailiffs, and his men were tailing them with their exceptional skills. It was, of course, impossible for the former bailiffs to outmatch them. After dealing with the bailiffs, the focus shifted to the scribes. Xiao Yunduan instructed his men to locate the scribes who were either sick or on leave from work. For those unable to return immediately, he set a clear deadline and had it documented on paper. The reasons for their absence and the duration of their leave had to be truthfully filled in. Verification might be necessary later, and deceiving a superior was not a matter to be taken lightly. Obtaining understanding from a superior under such circumstances was undoubtedly challenging. If the absence prolonged, resignation might be a better option. The functioning of the government office could not be indefinitely delayed for someone. If they couldn't return, replacements would be hired. Furthermore, those frequently falling sick or claiming poor health were deemed unsuitable for the job. Such individuals were even more deserving of dismissal. However, Xiao Yunduan wasn't heartless. Anyone choosing a leave would receive 3 months' salary, not a cent less. Upon receiving the news, reactions among the scribes varied. Some were enraged, others embarrassed, angry, or panicking, and some were filled with regret. However, none dared to disregard the directive. The lesson was right before their eyes. Initially, when Lord Xiao targeted the bailiffs on leave, they had anticipated his humiliation. Assuming he wouldn't dare touch the scribes, they focused on the bailiffs. Yet, the bailiffs proved challenging. Their sheer number posed difficulties, and legal repercussions couldn't be easily applied to the masses. Chapter 1696. He can do it again. They had doubted Lord Xiao's ability to handle the situation. Unexpectedly, within just a few days, those individuals had already dispersed euro in this critical moment. Lord Xiao sent someone to seek them out, leaving no room for exploitation. Faced with such clarity, none dared to stir up trouble. While the bailiffs were shameless, the scribes were no different. Hearing about Deputy Prefect Guan being assaulted by the bailiffs, they couldn't approach Deputy Prefect Guan for advice. The potential consequences were unknown. Consequently, the following day, the scribes dutifully reported to the government office. Most of them were cultivated talents, and a few were child students. As scholars, they upheld a sense of dignity. Upon meeting, they didn't appear awkward at all. Smiles and greetings were exchanged as if nothing had occurred. They greeted Xiao Yunduan with the same nonchalance. Internally, Xiao Yunduan sighed. It was commonly said that officials were as slippery as oil, and these individuals were undeniably slippery. While he harbored little fondness for many of them, their cooperation was necessary for the smooth functioning of the government office. As long as they didn't cause trouble, he didn't need to concern himself too much. Among them, a few were particularly crafty and cunning, having long colluded with Deputy Prefect Guan. Dealing with them was on his agenda, though the time wasn't ripe just yet. Certainly, leniency was an option. If they corrected their course in time, avoiding a point of no return, he might spare them. However, these considerations were likely his alone. They wouldn't believe in his commitment to staying indefinitely or in his capabilities. Having been with Deputy Prefect Guan for so many years, convincing them wouldn't be easy. Xiao Yunduan was mentally prepared for the worst. If they couldn't align with him and instead awaited opportunities to cause trouble, Xiao Yunduan couldn't afford to keep those individuals. The intermediate government office lacked unity, making it ill-equipped to contend with the 3 families and the bandits, let alone confront them. A weak link could easily drag down the entire team, jeopardizing the favorable situation. After addressing the issue with the bailiffs, Xiao Yunduan dispatched a message to Deputy Prefect Guan the next day. He tactfully avoided any mention of the bailiff's visit to his house, having already imparted a lesson. Xiao Yunduan focused on the topic of spring farming, inviting Deputy Prefect Guan to the government office for a discussion. Mrs. Guan reacted with fury upon hearing the news. "What does Lord Xiao think of you, old master?" Does he believe he can come and go as he pleases? If he wants suspension, so be it. If he wants you to return and work for him, let him make the request. Humph, it's not that easy. Deputy Prefect Guan was taken aback. Initially, he hadn't entertained this perspective. However, his wife's words prompted him to reconsider, and the more he pondered, the more it seemed plausible. Dejected, aggrieved, and depressed initially, Deputy Prefect Guan found himself trembling again. He could make a stand. Deputy Prefect Guan held a different view from the others. Xiao Yunduan had personally conveyed this message to him, and the urgency was palpable. What did this signify? It suggested Xiao Yunduan was at a loss, relying on Deputy Prefect Guan for assistance. In other words, Xiao Yunduan didn't know what to do and could only seek Deputy Prefect Guan's cooperation. Chapter 1697. Raising the price. This reaction was quite expected. Xiao Yunduan lacked experience and felt lost when faced with significant matters. If he didn't seek help, who else would he turn to? With spring plowing approaching, this was the opportune moment. But then again, shouldn't there be an attitude of seeking assistance? Deputy Prefect Guan sneered. Who did Xiao Yunduan think he was? He had cunningly deceived him in the bailiff incident, and now he wanted Deputy Prefect Guan to worry about labor and work for him? Even if he were the Lord Prefect, he couldn't expect such favors. The plan was to make Xiao Yunduan panic, leave him helpless, and then showcase Deputy Prefect Guan's capabilities, making it clear who Xiao Yunduan should rely on in An's province. Moreover, the bailiff incident had inflicted significant losses, causing him to lose face. He needed someone to compensate for it, and Lord Xiao seemed wealthier. Therefore, Deputy Prefect Guan politely declined. Through the housekeeper, he conveyed his message with utmost courtesy. Due to his injury and ongoing recovery, he had no choice but to trouble Lord Xiao temporarily. He assured Xiao Yunduan not to worry, promising to share the burden once he recovered. Maintaining a composed expression, Xiao Yunduan calmly accepted Deputy Prefect Guan's response, advising him to prioritize recovery. Regarding the errand, Deputy Prefect Guan could attend to it once he regained his health. As a gesture of gratitude, Xiao Yunduan instructed Songshe to prepare a gift for Deputy Prefect Guan. Deputy Prefect Guan felt even more satisfied with himself. What did Lord Xiao's actions signify? It seemed like he was bowing down to Deputy Prefect Guan. It appeared he had made the right move. Deputy Prefect Guan settled into a sense of assurance, deciding to ignore Xiao Yunduan for a few more days. Favors, in his perspective, were best bestowed upon someone when they were at their most vulnerable and helpless. It made the assistance seem all the more valuable, a concept akin to saving people from fire and water. This approach ensured that the other party would remember the gratitude, unable to deny it even if they wished to. As for Xiao Yunduan's plans, Deputy Prefect Guan remained in the dark. Xiao Yunduan was accustomed to orchestrating events, offering Deputy Prefect Guan an opportunity by extending the ladder. If Deputy Prefect Guan had learned from the bailiff incident, he would have seized the chance and followed suit. He could then showcase his capabilities to Xiao Yunduan. A sensible person would have taken the initiative to handle the spring planting responsibility without further prompting. However, Deputy Prefect Guan had different intentions. Mrs. Guan's grievances had inflated his sense of importance. He hoped to witness Xiao Yunduan's failure, swooping in as the savior to resolve the issue. This would force Xiao Yunduan to rely on him, demonstrating to everyone that he was more competent than the Lord of Prefect. He yearned for everyone to acknowledge that he still held authority in his province. Unaware that his resistance could still be won over by Xiao Yunduan's tact, Deputy Prefect Guan remained stubborn. Xiao Yunduan comprehended his mindset. If Deputy Prefect Guan chose to be obstinate, Xiao Yunduan saw no reason to be accommodating. He had done what was required. If Deputy Prefect Guan failed to appreciate it, there would be no second chance. Xiao Yunduan gathered the scribes for a discussion, contemplating his next moves. Chapter 1698. This is a lot of bad accounts. The scribes were either silent, spoke in seemingly logical but empty words, or excessively flattered the lord of the prefect, attributing wisdom and divine insight to him. They all hung onto the lord's every word. Upon re-examining the state treasury booklet, Xiao Yunduan discovered the absence of seeds. This implied that he would need to spend money to purchase them from the three families this spring. While the three families had verbally agreed to supply seeds to the government at market prices, there were no contractual instructions that could serve as evidence. This lack of formal agreements highlighted the considerable influence of the three families in An's province, as well as the former prefect's indifference towards this matter. The account book presented an even grimmer picture. Not only was there no money recorded, but it was also evident that significant debts were owed to the three major family clans and two additional family clans. As Xiao Yunduan perused the list, he found detailed entries of various expenses: building bridges, paving roads, digging canals, aiding victims, and post-flood reconstruction. Yet, these matters were virtually impossible to investigate or scrutinize. In essence, it amounted to bad debt euro, an accumulation of chaos left behind by the previous prefects. After years of unchecked growth, the total debt had ballooned to over 700,000 taels of silver. While this might be a trivial sum in the prosperous state capital of Jiangnan, it loomed as an insurmountable burden for An's province. The few influential families wielded unchecked power in An's province. Over 700,000 taels euro. Even if his wife could amass such wealth, she had only earned slightly more than 1,000,000 taels. Xiao Yunduan's expression darkened as he scrutinized the account book. Had it not been for the considerable financial resources at his disposal, nearly matching those of his wife, he wouldn't have felt the need for immediate caution. The mere sight of this account book was enough to induce a headache. Against the formidable backdrop of the three great clans, he found himself incapable of taking a firm stance. It seemed utterly unreasonable to confront someone after accumulating debts. As the lord of the prefect, any attempt to assert authority, credibility, or character was rendered futile. Observing this, the scribes exchanged subtle glances, remaining as impassive as mountains. They had grown accustomed to witnessing such expressions from the prefects. The outcome was inevitably euro. They would all bow before the three families. The spring plowing couldn't be delayed. Quick preparation and transportation of seeds to various towns were imperative. Villagers from different areas would present their land deeds and purchase seeds according to their land measurements. Government-bought seeds were not only of high quality with excellent germination rates, but they were also reasonably priced. Prioritizing the people's livelihood had always been a focus of Great Qin. Local officials dared not tamper with the distribution of spring and autumn seeds, as any discovery would lead to expulsion and a 3-generation ban on entering officialdom for their descendants. Therefore, the majority of farmers opted to purchase seeds from the government, leading to an extensive demand. Unfortunately, An's province's warehouse was entirely devoid of seeds. Facing this dire situation, Xiao Yunduan, despite being prepared for it, couldn't contain his fury. This discussion naturally ended without reaching any conclusive decision, as none were willing to voice their thoughts openly. Chapter 1699. Not like before, only one scribe sneered. Apart from seeking help from the three great families like in the past, there's no other way. This matter can't be delayed anymore. These seeds must be transferred into the warehouse promptly and distributed to the towns as soon as possible. If we delay any longer, it will be too late. Xiao Yunduan cast a glance at the scribe, named Jia Hemming, and smiled. If that is the case, then you can make a trip to the three big families. Ask them when they will be able to come, and ask them to hurry up. Everyone, €1, Jia Hemming burst into laughter. Lord, you might not know the local customs, but it's useless for me to go. You have to go personally. That is impossible. Xiao Yunduan raised his eyebrows. I am the prefect. I should not be involved in such matters. The others wore strange smiles as they silently mocked Lord Xiao. He was still too young and ignorant of the three big families' influence. If he insisted on preserving his dignity in front of them, he was bound to face hardships. Young people, indeed, displayed courage and boldness. Yet, they often needed to learn how to navigate challenges when at a disadvantage. Another person reveled in Jia Hemming's predicament. This individual had always been self-righteous and condescending. Well, now he had stirred up trouble for himself. He deserved €80. Jia Hemming exchanged glances with Xiao Yunduan and refrained from arguing further. He nodded. "If you say so, Lord, I will make the trip, but I can't guarantee the result." "No surprise there," Xiao Yunduan remarked. "You can leave now. Jia Hemming, come with me." "Yes, Lord." The others, looking scornfully at Jia Hemming, whispered amongst themselves as they left. They believed he got what he deserved. After all, he was the one who spoke too much. Following Xiao Yunduan to the back office, Jia Hemming was instructed to sit down. Xiao Yunduan queried, "I don't think the three families will provide the seeds for free. Do you know what their conditions might be?" Xiao Yunduan was unaware of the previous dealings between the prefect and the three prominent families. Though Deputy Prefect Guan might have possessed the necessary information, it was clear he would never disclose the truth. The others in the government office were both tactful and sophisticated, each more reserved and unconcerned than the next. Gathering useful information proved challenging. Xiao Yunduan had kept a close watch on Jia Hemming. He perceived him as the only potential source of truthful information within the government office. Slightly surprised, Jia Hemming decided to be forthcoming. "Lord, the three families have various requests, but they all boil down to seeking profits. The Fan family, with its substantial 150,000 to 160,000 mu of fertile land, prioritizes grain taxes and the food trade. The Hua family focuses on medicinal herbs and mountain products. The Mei family's master is involved in the wood business. You merely need to turn a blind eye and provide them with corresponding benefits and conveniences." Xiao Yunduan comprehended the situation and furrowed his brow. "I have reviewed the tax records, and they have consistently paid substantial taxes over the years." Jia Hemming emitted a cold laugh. "Lord, records are just €30 records. The truth is the truth. The entries in the records are for appearances only. It's not only the three great clans. How many of the smaller family clans affiliated with the three great clans genuinely pay their taxes? There are prepayments in the accounts. Regardless of how dignified the reasons seem, there are loopholes. These entries and exits might appear reasonable and flawless, but it's all in the accounts." Chapter 1700. Jia Hemming's doubts. The Lord of the Prefect, Deputy Prefect Guan, and certain high-ranking scribes had all reaped benefits from these arrangements. They stood to lose nothing. The state of the government's public accounts was the imperial court's concern and had no bearing on their personal affairs. As long as there was no civil unrest, the imperial court was indifferent. If any prefect lord sought the imperial court's assistance and agreed to resolve the matter, it would not be surprising. However, the prefect lords were reluctant to interfere in each other's affairs. Allowing this debt to persist year after year would only increase the indebtedness to the major families. If the family clans diligently paid their taxes, the public accounts wouldn't be in such dire straits. The substantial businesses of the three major families alone constituted at least half of the local economy. Almost every business in An's province had some connection with the three major families. Jia Hemming wasn't aware of the new prefect's plans, and it didn't matter to him. What mattered most was whether the new prefect had the capability to execute those plans. In Jia Hemming's perspective, it seemed impossible. Although he didn't mind making the trip to the three major clans, he didn't believe it would end well. That was the reality. Xiao Yunduan understood that Jia Hemming wouldn't provide more insight, and he, too, refrained from expressing his thoughts. He instructed Jia Hemming, visit the three families and request rice seeds from them. They must ensure that the seeds are of superior quality. Regarding the price, it should align with the market rate, with a slight adjustment to avoid their incurring losses. After collecting taxes in the autumn, we will pay them the silver, settling the interest with the bank. I want to exploit them. Of course, if they agree to this, come to the state office tomorrow. They'll set the contract with them. Jia Hemming was dumbfounded. Xiao Yinduan threw a strange look at him. Is there anything you don't understand? I don't understand anything. Lord, Jia Hemming suppressed his thumping heart and calmed himself down. You mean Euro this rice seed is considered a normal purchase by the government and the three big families. You want a euro, you won't make things easy for the three big families anymore? A euro, in other words, euro lord. Are you going to collect taxes from the three families? Xiao Yunwan said, not just the three big families, but also their relatives. Jia Hemming. A euro, that was not what he meant. Although Jia Hemming couldn't stand the fact that the three families had colluded with the state government office to cause chaos in An's province, he couldn't wait for a capable prefect to deal with them. But hearing what Xiao Yunwan said, he could not help but worry for him. Don't go overboard. Jia Hemming could not help but say, Lord, Thesero, forgive me for being blunt, but this matter still needs to be planned slowly. The three big families are local tyrants after all, and their interests and relationships with the big families are intertwined. If we force them into a corner, I'm afraid Euro. To be honest, Lord, the state government often can't even give out their salaries and has to borrow from the three big families. If these Euro, I'm afraid, they might not be willing to borrow again. If they don't borrow, other families definitely won't dare to borrow. That will cause chaos Euro at the end of the day. Wasn't this a matter of money? Xiao Yinwan smiled. The money was nothing to him. He had to thank his wife. It was all thanks to his wife that he could become an official here safely. Chapter 1701. That's all the reminder. Don't worry, I've thought it through. Jia Hemming was stunned and seemed to understand a little. Madame Xiao had bought so many plots of land, and now she was busy hiring people to open up the land. She had no idea what she was going to plant and open up so many plots of land. She had spent a lot of money. It was obvious that Lord Xiao was a rich man. However, no matter how rich he was, it would be difficult for him to support the circulation of a government office for a year. Lord Xiao didn't have a good estimation of the situation. Jia Hemming couldn't bear to see this ambitious prefect, Lord, who wanted to expand his career and lead the An's province government office on the right track. He couldn't help but remind him. In the end, he said vaguely, there's one more thing. Forgive me for being nosy. Lord, don't forget that this is An's province. The bandits in An's province are extremely vicious and are really not easy to deal with. The families who can survive in An's province are all quite capably Euro. Jia Hemming sighed in his heart. This was the only reminder he could give. Lord Xiao was a smart man. He should be able to understand what he was saying. Without evidence, he definitely wouldn't dare to say anything. However, there were some things that everyone knew very well. The reason why the three big families and the big families that relied on them could live so comfortably was definitely not just because they controlled the prefect Yamen. More importantly, they must have secretly paid tribute to those bandits. Otherwise, why would those bandits be willing to live in harmony with them? If Lord Xiao wanted to touch those big families, apart from having a lot of money, he also had to be strong enough. Jia Hemming felt that this was impossible. Those bandits had been operating for many years and had long become famous. Not to mention those small forces and scattered forces, just the three big forces alone could not be underestimated. They were existences that even the three big families did not dare to provoke easily. How powerful was Lord Xiao? How dare he provoke them? Were they counting on his servants? Or were they counting on these bailiffs who could not even run when they saw the bandits? It was unrealistic. Xiao Yunwan thought for a while and understood what Jia Hemming meant. He smiled and said, I understand what you mean. It is okay, I have my own ideas. I will not take the lives of myself and my family as a joke. Jia Hemming heaved a sigh of relief. A Euro Lord, you know what you're doing. I won't say anything else. Then, the three families Euro, he definitely had to go. What should he say? Xiao Yunduan said, What did I tell you? What are you going to say? Jia Hemming. A Euro, he really wanted to roar. So, Lord, you know what you're doing. Seeing that Xiao Yunduan did not seem to be joking, Jia Hemming gave up. Yes, I understand. When they returned to the back office, Qiao Xian was looking at the strawberries planted in the backyard. The small strawberry field had already grown very well. The leaves were fat, tender, thick, and green. The stem was healthy, thick, and full of vitality. It had yet to bloom, but it looked like it would soon. The two of them watched for a while before entering the house together. Xiao Yunduan told Xiao Xian about the seed for a while, and then told her about what he had heard from Jia Heming about the three families. I didn't expect the three families alone to stir up such a mess in the state government office. They probably have a deep relationship with those bandits. Wife, I really want to send you back to Yuzhangiro. Chapter 1702. Concern is chaotic when Xiao Xian tried to persuade him. Xiao Yunwan agreed and thought that he could protect her. But now he was not so confident. The situation here was much more dangerous than he had expected. He had to ensure that he would take it step by step and not make any mistakes. If anything went wrong, all his previous efforts would be wasted. He couldn't afford to bet on Harayuro. Xiao Xian caressed her belly and said with a smile, "Don't worry about me, my husband. Unless those bandits dare to attack the state office, I am safe. They don't have the guts." The imperial court was afraid of them. Now that they had turned a blind eye to them, they were naturally happy to live a stable life. However, if they dared to attack the government office in public and kill the local officials, they would be openly provoking the imperial court. They would be rebelling and looking down on Great Qin. The emperor would never let them go and would definitely send an army to kill them. Otherwise, would the imperial court still be shameless? Where would the emperor's face go? He believed that such a situation was definitely not what those mountain kings wanted to see. Once the imperial court sent an army, they would definitely suffer. Even if they were not wiped out, they would definitely suffer. Therefore, unless it was a life-and-death struggle, they would never provoke the governmental office. It was not that Xiao Yunduan did not understand this, but he was just confused. Hearing what Xiao Xian said calmly, Xiao Yunduan could not help but burst into laughter, feeling totally relieved. He took hold of Xiao Xian's hands, lowered his head, and rubbed against her forehead. He said softly, "I am so lucky to be able to marry you, my wife. The Xiao family has accumulated so much fortune over the past few lifetimes, and it is all thanks to me." Xiao Xian felt very sweet inside her heart, but she was also embarrassed by what he said. She leaned into his arms and smiled. "As long as we do not have the same blessing, it is my blessing." Xiao Yunwan smiled. "As you wish." Xiao Xian's negative karma was still going on. The 3,000 mu of land had been cleaned up, and the trimmed firewood had been brought back to their families by the workers. Now he was digging roots, grass, and bushes, turning the entire ground over. There were too many different kinds of roots, and some of them were quite huge. There was no way for the iron plow to work normally. Apart from removing all kinds of roots, he had to roughly tidy up the ground and try to make it as flat as possible. Only then could he use the plowing oxen to pull and plow the ground. Each person had 2 meat buns for lunch. There were enough steamed buns and bone soup. The salary was paid every 5 days. The employees were very motivated. Then Lu Fu and the others checked carefully. The roots and grass were clean. 40 people could clear about 120 to 150 mu in a day. The clearing of weeds and miscellaneous trees in the mountain would be slower, but it had already been completed in the past 2 days. There was no need to dig up the entire ground. They only needed to dig away the roots and bushes. Xiao Xian planned to plant peppers and star anise all over the mountain, so that some herbs could be planted in the flat area at the foot of the mountain. Apart from the place where the herbs were planted, she would plant them well and dig a tree pit on the mountain. According to the current speed, all the land would be sorted out in about half a month. After that, it would not take much time to dig holes and plow. Although time was a little tight, he could still plant all the seeds if he rushed and grabbed Spring's tail. Chapter 1703. Reject farming demanded precision, timed perfectly to avoid the detrimental effects of scorching temperatures. The challenge lay in preventing saplings from losing water during extreme heat, as it significantly lowered the survival rate. Yet, these issues posed no obstacle for Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian's extraordinary abilities were more than sufficient to oversee the cultivation of tens of thousands of mu of plants. As the couple immersed themselves in their individual careers, onlookers were left bewildered and uncertain. In the eyes of many, the Lord of the Prefect was not only engaged in farming, but also seamlessly handling governmental affairs. His uncompromising stance and refusal to let anyone take advantage of him appeared, to some, a deviation from the norm. Jia Heming approached the three prominent families, seeking their agreement to supply rice seeds based on Xiao Yunduan's conditions. However, none were willing to comply. Even the more amiable ones, like the Hua family, attempted to probe, but soon realized the Lord of the Prefect's unyielding nature. They cited numerous domestic responsibilities and claimed a lack of surplus rice seeds, expressing regret for being unable to assist. Old Lady Fan of the Fan family went a step further, openly berating Jia Heming and severing ties with him. The Mei family adopted a similarly cold stance, rejecting the proposal outright. Jia Heming tirelessly shuttled between Xiao Yunduan and the three major families, engaging in several rounds of negotiations that ultimately ended on sour terms. Old Lady Fan, influenced by her daughter's accounts, developed a negative opinion of Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian. In response, she instructed her eldest son to reach out to the other two families. The trio convened at the Fan family residence to devise countermeasures. Old Lady Fan's face displayed contempt and mockery. It appears our Lord of the Prefect State is obsessed with wealth. He has set his sights on us. How amusing. Old Master Hua maintained a smile without uttering a word. First Old Master Mei sneered. Youth knows no fear. This Lord Xiao is unlike his predecessors. Old Lady Fan cackled. Youth these days so audacious. We elders must guide them to understand the vastness of heaven and earth. We want metal in this affair, nor shall we permit other families to intervene or lend him money. Let's witness what he can achieve. What do you think? The Fan family had officially registered 150,000 mu of fertile land with the government, but in reality, it was 200,000 mu. Despite the abundance of fertile fields, hefty annual taxes were a constant burden. Xiao Yunduan's insistence that the Fan family start paying taxes from this year forward enraged Old Lady Fan. The Fan family yielded a considerable harvest annually, mostly sold as commodities. Thanks to the government support, the produce not only sold smoothly, but fetched a price that left the Fan family content. Despite offering some benefits to the government, it remained a profitable venture. However, the new prefect lord's demand for taxes on the Fan family's food sales threatened to disrupt their prosperity. Xiao Yunwan was unwilling to ease the process for the Fan family. This prospect left the Fan clan facing substantial losses. In reality, the Fan family's past actions were unlawful, constituting a violation of the law. Xiao Yunwan merely urged them to relinquish their privileged status. Having enjoyed these privileges for years, the Fan family had grown accustomed to them. Xiao Yunduan's attempt to strip away these benefits was seen as an infringement on their rights and interests. Naturally, they resisted. Chapter 1704. Discussion between the three families as a result. Old Lady Fan seethed with fury. Despite Jia Heming's repeated visits, she consistently taunted and ridiculed him, making him oblivious to the extent of her disdain. The mere mention of the prefect lord would elicit Old Lady Fan's fervent desire for Xiao Yunduan's misfortune. She would then resort to tearful pleas, accompanied by generous offers of benefits to the Fan family. During such moments, she found some satisfaction in venting her anger. Upon hearing Old Lady Fan's sentiments, Old Master Mei displayed contentment and nodded. Let's proceed with that plan. Old Master Hu chuckled, adding, since you've made up your mind, I naturally can't lag behind. In response, Old Lady Fan snorted and rolled her eyes at him. She harbored a strong dislike for the cunning and selfish old man from the Hua family, who always prioritized personal gain. Despite being astute, he never took a step forward, always hiding behind others. Regardless, the Fan family, with its strength, held no fear. Now that the decision's made, let's stand by our word. Everyone, go back and inform your families, relatives, and friends. Old Master Mei and Old Master Hua nodded in agreement. Suddenly, Old Lady Fan's tone shifted, and she remarked, the government still owes us a considerable sum of money, not to mention the interest. What's your stance on reclaiming it? Old Master Hua and Old Master Mice Hearts skipped a beat at this unexpected turn. They thought to themselves, How ruthless! When it came to being relentless, vengeful, and unyielding, no one dared to challenge Old Lady Fan for the top spot. Let's proceed cautiously. Old Master may advise slowly. Forcing the Lord of the Prefect into a corner may bring unforeseen changes. We're all seeking wealth. There's no need to escalate matters to that extent at the moment. Old Master Huan nodded in agreement. The Mei family's eldest nephew is correct. A cornered rabbit bites. Moreover, Lord Xiao is known for his temper. Stirring up trouble might not be necessary. The idea of the government owing the money seemed appealing. This way, regardless of who assumed the role of prefect, they would have a favor owed to them. Denying such a claim was practically impossible. Since each family wasn't lacking in funds, treating the owed sum like a deposit in the bank seemed reasonable. Old Lady Fan, displeased by their opposition, sneered and remarked, "Repaying what you owe is the right thing to do. How can you turn it into a problem? Is having a temper an excuse not to settle debts? What a joke. If you want, the Fan family will reclaim the money. That's for certain." Old Master may remain silent. Old Master was smiled without offering further comments. Even more displeased, Old Lady Fan took action the next day. She instructed her 2 sons to visit the office and demand the return of the owed 80,000 taels of silver from Lord Xiao. The 2 old masters of the Fan family were baffled, unable to comprehend their mother's sudden insistence on this matter. Despite attempting to dissuade her, Old Lady Fan remained obstinate. Helpless, the 2 elders sought an alternative solution and requested their daughter-in-law to approach Madame Xiao first. After some consideration, Old Lady Fan eventually agreed, stating, "Fine, they'll save some face for Lord Xiao. If he has any sense, he'll return the money. Otherwise, don't blame me for tarnishing the reputation of the prefect's office." Indeed, it was embarrassing for the dignified prefect's office to be unable to repay a debt. Such a situation would undermine Xiao Yunduan's authority. After all, he represented the prefect's office. Chapter 1705. Why are you here? Was Fan Ruyan willing to miss out on such a lively event? Of course not. She wanted to go too. Although first Madame Fan was hesitant to bring along her seemingly trouble-stirring sister-in-law, she lacked the authority to refuse. Thus, the following morning, they made their way to the backyard of the state government office to visit Madame Xiao. Xiao Xian had just finished discussing matters with Song Shi, Lu Fu, and others when she learned of first Madame Fan and Aunt's visit. Smiling, she greeted them. "Keep an eye on the schedule and try to expedite matters. Time waits for no one." The 2 women agreed and departed. Li Qiu commented, "They didn't come when you were resting. I don't know why they're here now." The sentiment was unanimous. Xiao Xian smiled. "They're not here to visit me. Since they've come, let them in." First Madame Fan exhibited proper manners as she greeted Xiao Xian politely, took a seat, and engaged in conversation. She inquired about the baby in Xiao Xian's belly, offering advice on pregnancy and discussing how to care for the child. Xiao Xian, genuinely interested, joined the conversation with enthusiasm. For a pregnant woman eagerly anticipating her child, there was no more enticing topic. It was impossible to resist such kindness. Fan Ruyan's expression soured. Gradually, her complexion paled as she glared at first Madame Fan. She had suspected it. Her 2 sister-in-laws weren't as benevolent as they appeared. While they behaved respectably in front of their mother, behind her back, they harbored disdain for her and her family. Yet, she was also a member of the Fan family, just like her brothers. They shared the same mother. Why couldn't she find a husband? Why couldn't she claim a share of the Fan family's assets? His mother and brothers remained silent. What right did his 2 sister-in-laws have to be dissatisfied? They were outsiders. Whenever he was present, his mother would insist that they take care of him. However, when he wasn't in front of her, how willing were they to cater to his needs? It was preposterous. Xiao Xian had already noticed Fan Ruyan's discontented expression, but chose to feign ignorance. Dealing with the wife of the prefect required careful consideration in conversation. After all, what a jest. Did this girl from the Fan family believe everyone had a flatterer? Upon reflection, it seemed that was indeed the case. The Fan family, one of the three major families in Anne's province, wielded significant influence in the region. With the government struggling to control the area, they heavily relied on these three families for management. Given such circumstances, the Fan family had the power to demand praise and face from others. Over time, Fan Rian might have developed such a personality naturally. Yet, Xiao Xian refused to cater to it. While others might endure Fan Rian's arrogant temper, willingly or not, Xiao Xian saw no need to seek assistance from the Fan family. As for fear, it held even less sway over her. If the Fan family persisted in their arrogance, it was only a matter of time before her husband took a stand against them. In essence, they were already in the first round. Observing her sister-in-law's darkening expression, First Madam Fan inwardly sighed. She couldn't keep pretending she hadn't noticed. If she had continued to turn a blind eye, she would be spared this current predicament. However, when she returned, Fan Rian would undoubtedly complain to their mother-in-law. Chapter 1706. Debt. At that moment, she was uncertain about the severity of her mother-in-law's potential punishment. Even though she was over 40 years old and already a grandmother, it mattered little. Her mother-in-law was known for being unreasonable. If she wanted to reprimand her, dignity would be the last thing she granted. It wasn't surprising that the two of them had always been close. First Madam Fan welcomed Fan Rian with a smile, though Fan Rian failed to appreciate it. Instead, she felt further aggrieved. Were you earlier? You deliberately ignored her. Now, you're probably afraid of being scolded when you go back. Only then did you think of her, a living person beside you. Huh. Fan Rian didn't follow First Madam Fan's lead. Instead, she addressed Xiao Xian with a forced smile. I heard you've purchased numerous mountains and are hiring people to explore them. What are your plans for cultivation? Do you intend to settle in Anne's permanently? Xiao Xian smiled. The crops planted in the land were no secret to anyone. However, she disliked Fan Rian's tone and had no intention of sharing details. Well, cultivate whatever thrives well in Anne's province, yielding a good return. Well, plant casually, indifferently. As for settling here permanently, that depends on the imperial court. Nevertheless, my husband will stay for at least 2 or 3 terms. She glanced at First Madam Fan and added with a smile, I may require your assistance in various matters in the future. First Madam Fan bowed, smiling. Fan Rian sneered inwardly. You still want the Fan clan's help? Seeking advantage from the Fan clan? Dream on. Madam Xiao, considering the substantial land purchase, you and your husband must have spent a considerable amount of money. The Anne's Province Government Office still owes our family 80,000 taels of silver. With our family engaged in significant business now, we're unable to turn the money around. Since Lord Xiao and Madam Xiao aren't lacking in funds, could you assist the government office in settling this debt with our family first? Fan Rian spoke up, feeling that she had expressed herself quite tactfully. First Madam Fan, embarrassed, wished she could vanish. The prefect, Lord Xiao, was seeking money from the prefect's wife, and as long as he remained in office, the Fan family wouldn't be able to extract anything from him. She disapproved of this matter as much as her husband did. If she were the one handling it, she wouldn't even bring it up. She'd simply have a few words with old Madam Fan. Fan Rian had accompanied her, intending to drop a subtle hint or two. Little did she know that this girl wanted to stir up trouble. First Madam Fan felt powerless and turned to Xiao Xian with an apologetic look, forcing a smile. Madam Xiao, I'm truly sorry, the Jie family is facing difficulties right now, and we wouldn't have resorted to this if we had other options. Please forgive us. Fan Rian glanced at her sister-in-law disdainfully. So what if she phrased it nicely? Regardless of how polite the request sounded, they were there to collect debts. Expecting Madam Xiao to treat them cordially without harboring any resentment was wishful thinking. Xiao Xian was taken aback. She hadn't anticipated that the two sisters-in-law had a specific purpose for their visit. However, she never imagined it was to collect debts. From her husband, she had heard about the disorderly state of the official accounts, with substantial debts owed to local prominent families. Hence, owing money to the Fan family wasn't surprising. Chapter 1707. Giving it to her, the sum of 80,000 taels of silver was undeniably substantial. Had it not been for Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian, no one else could have procured such a significant amount for the prefect. It raised a dilemma. How could this prefect maintain any dignity and confidence in front of these affluent families? It was no wonder each prefect's tenure was short-lived. Beyond the threats posed by bandits and outlaws, the influence of these powerful families might also play a role. If these prominent families were covertly connected to the bandits and outlaws, each prefect would likely seethe with frustration, yet dare not voice their grievances. What a vexing situation. Xiao Xian remained silent, and Fan Ruyan reveled in her satisfaction. Being the prefect's wife didn't alter the fact that money could overwhelm even a hero. Without funds, how could one hope to control the Fan family? Lord Prefect was too naive. Did they genuinely believe the Fan clan was an easy target? Fan Ruyan continued, Madam Xiao, we are facing our own challenges. Please understand, Madam Xiao and Lord Xiao. Xiao Xian smiled. You need not be overly polite, Madam Bai. However, 80,000 taels of silver is a substantial sum. I will need to consult with my husband. How about this, Mrs. Bai? Return tomorrow and don't forget to bring the IOU. Both First Madam Fan and Fan Ruyan were taken aback. What did this mean? Was Madam Xiao truly planning to repay the money? Indeed, 80,000 taels of silver was a considerable amount. How could they produce it immediately? Nevertheless, having made the statement, there was no room for retraction. Fan Ruyan promptly agreed, wearing a smile. Xiao Xian nodded and smiled. It's a deal. First Madam Fan felt even more ashamed and uneasy. Feeling embarrassed to stay any longer, she quickly stood up with a smile and bid farewell. Xiao Xian didn't prolong the encounter and arranged for someone to escort them out. Upon Xiao Yunduan's return, Xiao Xian shared the encounter with a smile. Husband, it appears the three families have no intention of cooperating with you. Xiao Yunduan had been planning to revoke their privileges when the Fan family voiced their objection, and the other two families followed suit. Although Xiao Yunduan anticipated this development, he didn't expect it to unfold so swiftly. It seems we can't rely on them for the seeds. The Fan family has made their stance clear, and the others are likely to follow suit. I've implicated you again. Xiao Xian smiled. It's not a big deal. I have the IOU, and am not accepting the money for free. With the taxes due this year, they'll be repaid. Xiao Yunduan smiled and embraced her. Of course. Even so, without Xiao Xian, he wouldn't have managed it. If all the prominent families joined forces, the cost would exceed 600,000 taels of silver. Where could an ordinary prefect, Lord, procure such a sum? After discussing for a while, Xiao Yunduan voiced his concern. The money is one thing, but I'm worried they might take other actions. My wife, don't go out so easily, and keep an eye on Songshi and the others. Xiao Yunduan wasn't overly concerned about Songshi and the land reclamation. The three big families were more likely to target him or his wife rather than the servants. What use was there in targeting servants? They wouldn't expect him to retaliate over a few servants. They wouldn't dare to touch the wasteland since they had their own fields. Their audacity to meddle here stemmed from the belief that consequences wouldn't follow. If they did provoke a reaction, they would be at a disadvantage. After all, their fields were superior and more numerous. Chapter 1708. Feeling slapped in the face, what they desired now was for Xiao Yunduan to concede defeat and lower his head. If the three big families continued to act unchecked in An's province, they would solely target him and his wife. Hearing his concerns, Xiao Xian grew a bit anxious. She repeatedly reminded him to be cautious when going out. Xiao Yunduan, caught between laughter and tears, reassured her, fearing she wouldn't be able to tend to the baby in peace. Xiao Yunduan instructed Jia Hemming to approach the three prominent families again and issue an ultimatum. They wouldn't be selling the seeds, so they needed to finalize the deal today without further delay. If the families truly couldn't provide assistance or resources, he would have to explore alternative solutions. Despite Jia Hemming's expectation that the trip might be futile, He complied. The outcome aligned with his predictions. The three families weren't reserved. They genuinely had nothing to offer. Xiao Yunhua nodded and dismissed Jia Heming. Jia Heming seemed hesitant to speak, but chose to hold his tongue. Though concerned, he left with a somber expression. He sensed that Lord Xiao was genuinely determined to take action, but deemed him too hasty. While he understood the impossibility of extracting anything from the formidable three big families, being too anxious posed its own challenges. If the three families refused to assist, the other clans were unlikely to help either. With no funds in the official account, Xiao Yunduan faced a dilemma. Unbeknownst to Jia Heming, Xiao Yunduan had instructed Zheng Sang to lead a group to Yuezheng province. There, he requested Yuezheng Xiao to secretly deliver the seeds. Zheng Sang brought individuals to provide discreet protection, just in case. Given the three big families' audacity to confront bandits, their methods differed from those of other family clans. Xiao Yunduan had to exercise caution. As expected, first Madame Fan faced a scolding from her mother-in-law in the Fan family. She had grown numb to it and merely listened. Old Lady Fan had anticipated that Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian might soften their stance when asked to settle the debt. To her displeasure, they not only held their ground but also presented the IOU the next day. Feeling even more dissatisfied with the outcome, Old Lady Fan instructed, "Since Madame Xiao has spoken, both you and your sister-in-law will go again tomorrow. Take the butler and the IOU with you. I want to see if Madame Xiao is bluffing. If she doesn't give you the money tomorrow, don't return empty-handed. Make sure she promises something, understand?" First Madame Fan nodded. The following morning, the two of them, accompanied by the Guan family and the IOU, paid another visit. Upon seeing them, Xiao Xian greeted, "Welcome." Without a word, she had someone verify the authenticity of the IOU and gladly handed over the banknotes. There were a total of 8 cards, each worth 10,000 taels. As she held the banknotes, Fan Ruyin remained in a daze. Is this it? They received the banknotes just like that? Madame Xiao didn't even plead with the Fan family? Regardless of Fan Ruyin's thoughts, she could only return with the banknotes. Despite successfully securing the repayment, Fan Ruyin found herself surprisingly dissatisfied. Old Lady Fan shared the sentiment, feeling as though she had been slapped in the face. She believed that other families might be ridiculing her behind her back, especially the old man from the Hua family. Old Lady Fan promptly dispatched someone to seek out the other 3 smaller family clans holding the promissory note. Their mission was to collect the debt at the designated location from the government office. Chapter 1709. Stifled if the Hua family and the Mei family refused, Old Lady Fan wouldn't summon them. However, the other families were holding nearly 200,000 taels in IOUs. Since Madame Xiao had seemingly slapped her own face, Old Lady Fan felt compelled to retaliate. They doubted they would actually receive payment this time. 2 families secretly rejected Xiao Yunduan's request, but didn't dare to refuse openly. Every family knew Old Lady Fan's temperament. If they dared to decline, they risked earning her enmity, making their future interactions challenging. They might as well collectively voice their grievances to the government to reclaim the money. Xiao Xian, unwilling to ask Xiao Yunduan for the promissory note, left the other party bewildered. Xiao Xian chuckled, saying, "Since you're here to collect the debt, why didn't you bring the IOU? Perhaps you forgot that I'm expecting you, so let me go back and fetch it now." Her words left them feeling awkward. Uncertain whether Xiao Xian intended to genuinely repay the money or not, they found themselves cornered and unable to back down. They hurriedly went home to retrieve the IOU. The total amount was 230,000 taels of silver, and Xiao Xian counted out 10,000 taels each. There were 23 banknotes, neatly arranged. The few debt collectors were stunned. Holding the banknotes, they felt no joy. Instead, an unexplainable guilt crept in. It was a rare sight to see debt collectors in such a mood. As they departed the state office, their footsteps seemed a bit lighter. Old Lady Fan was furious. Old Lady Fan felt as if she had been slapped in the face once again. How is that possible? How can the Xiao family have so much money? The total amount, including their family's funds, was 310,000 taels of silver, ready-made banknotes, not assets. Even for the Fan family, it wasn't easy to produce such a sum at once. Unable to accept defeat, Old Lady Fan compelled her two sons to approach the Mei family and the Hua family, hoping to exert pressure on Xiao Yunwan. The three families had long stood together, facing challenges and victories collectively. Xiao Yunduan's actions had not only embarrassed the Fan family, but also deliberately suppressed them. The other two families couldn't afford to stay aloof. By defending the Fan family's honor, they would prevent Xiao Yunduan from sowing discord among them. If the three families turned against each other, Xiao Yunduan could pick them off one by one. From their perspective, the new prefect lord seemed oblivious to their long-standing alliances. Instead, he immediately clashed with the three families upon his arrival, refusing to compromise on the seed issue. Now, with the debt repayment at hand, they were left feeling somewhat resentful. Xiao Yunduan had anticipated that the Fan family would try to influence the other two families. He had already made arrangements for the required funds, but the sheer amount raised questions. Did he truly have such resources? If the three big families refused to provide seeds, Xiao Yunduan would have to purchase them himself. With 17 towns and numerous villages in An's province, the number of seeds required was substantial. Procuring them would incur significant costs. Chapter 1710. Banquet. The Hua family and the Mei family found themselves in a dilemma. Did Lord Xiao truly possess such vast financial resources? If he did, why would he take on a position in An's province? They pondered whether he could have used his wealth to attain power more directly. According to the information they had gathered earlier, Xiao Yunduan hailed from a modest farming family with an ordinary background. In their perplexity, the Hua and Mei families reluctantly decided to collect the debt from the state office. If Xiao Yunduan could repay them, it was acceptable. Otherwise, they feared he would utilize the funds to source seeds from alternative means, causing them to regret their inaction. Approaching Xiao Yunduan directly, they received the banknotes after Qing Yin retrieved them from Qiao Xian. Xiao Yunduan promptly transferred all the IOUs to Qiao Xian. As a result, Qiao Xian now held the IOUs totaling 620,000 taels of silver. While the silver in Qiao Xian's possession diminished to less than 500,000 taels, it was still an impressive sum compared to others. Utilizing 200,000 taels to procure rice seeds was more than sufficient. The attempt by the three families to use money as leverage against Xiao Yunduan proved futile. Qiao Xian, with a smile, informed her husband about the situation and expressed her intention to host a banquet, inviting all the ladies to witness the unfolding spectacle. After all, Mrs. Guan had recently organized a reception banquet for her, and it seemed fitting to reciprocate. The banquet served as a clear counterattack against the three prominent families, revealing that Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao were untroubled by financial concerns. Xiao Yunduan, however, couldn't help but express his concern for Qiao Xian's well-being, glancing at her belly with a touch of worry. Reassuring him, Qiao Xian smiled and assured, "I am fine. The weather is perfect, so we can enjoy some leisurely conversation, admire the flowers, and have a good time. He'll ask Li Xia and the others to stay close this time." Xiao Yunduan agreed, but suggested involving Mrs. Guan to manage the guests, while Li Xia and Li Qiu would stay by Qiao Xian's side for added protection. He emphasized the need for Qiao Xian's safety in light of the potential schemes and risks posed by those unhappy with the seed and promissory note situation. Acknowledging his concerns, Qiao Xian agreed to make a brief appearance at the banquet before retiring to rest, with Li Xia, Li Qiu, and others remaining to take care of her. Mrs. Guan, though not entirely willing, had little choice but to accept the responsibility. The swift and uncompromising return of the 620,000 taels of silver amazed Mrs. Guan and her husband. Qiao Xian's calm and unquestionable handling of such a large sum left them astonished and made them think twice about crossing her. The banquet was scheduled for 2 days later, leaving the recipients of the invitations in disbelief. The upcoming event promised to be a spectacle, especially considering Old Lady Fan's inevitable reaction to the situation. Chapter 17:11. Furious, she was the one who started the debt. She wanted to suppress Lord Xiao and force him to give in. Unexpectedly, Lord Xiao returned the 620,000 taels of silver without any hesitation. This round, Old Lady Fan lost. Others lost too, but she was the leader. Madame Xiao found it interesting as well. She set up a banquet and invited everyone to enjoy the flowers and watch the show. This was clearly continuing to challenge the Fan clan and the three great clans. So what if he had returned 620,000 taels of silver? He was still in a good mood to admire the flowers and listen to the show. After the Fan family received the invitation, Old Lady Fan was so angry that she almost couldn't breathe. She scolded, "You're going too far. Wasn't this going too far?" Everyone was smart enough to know what Xiao Xian was trying to do by inviting guests at this time. It seems that Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao have made up their minds to go against us. Good. I've seen how ignorant they are today. As smug as they are, money isn't enough in An's province. Old Lady Fan was in a fit of pique. She had planned to not let the Fan family attend this banquet, but she also wanted to give it to the families who were close to her. She also wanted to tell the Mei family and the Hua family. First, Old Master Fan, and second, Old Master Fan had a headache. This won't do. This was equivalent to going against Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao. By then, Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao wouldn't let the Fan family off easily, even if it was for the sake of their reputation. Although the Fan family was one of the three big families in An's province, it would cause a lot of trouble if Lord Xiao targeted them. At that time, the Hua family and the Mei family would be left far behind. There might even be other families trying to replace them. But if he explained it to Old Lady Fan like this, it would definitely not make sense. She would not listen, because she was very confident in her family. First, Old Master Fan and his brother had no choice but to tell her that they had to attend the banquet. If they didn't, others would think that the Fan family was afraid of Lord Xiao. Old Lady Fan felt that it was true. Why not? She had to go, and she had to go in a glamorous manner. The banquet was held as scheduled. This time, the banquet was even more lively and crowded than the reception banquet. Xiao Xian was showing off, of course, the more the merrier. Furthermore, she had indeed invited more people to see if there was anyone she could befriend and support. How could it be said that all the local family clans, big and small, were convinced of the three big families and did not have any other thoughts? Xiao Xian was of a higher status than everyone else, so she did not need to greet them personally. Instead, the ladies who came to visit her had to greet her one by one. It saved her a lot of trouble in the province. Seeing this, Mrs. Guan felt very frustrated. If Lord Xiao managed to solve the problem of the seed, more than half of the scribes in office would side with him. It would be meaningless for his old master to pretend to be sick. But now that things had come to this, her old master was caught between a rock and a hard place. She could only hope that Lord Xiao wouldn't be able to solve this problem. When his old master took action to solve the problem, his old master would have the final say in the government office Euro. Compared to the reception banquet last time, the ladies were much more polite to Xiao Xian this time. Chapter 17:12. The more at this time, the more the Fan family cares about this. After all, not many people could take out 620,000 taels of silver without blinking. Who knew what other trump cards Lord Xiao had? Lord Xiao didn't even hesitate to slap the Fan family's face. Even though these family clans were considered top-notch locally, they were nothing compared to the Fan family. In Lord Xiao's eyes, it was nothing. In addition, the Fan family had always been domineering. If it wasn't for the Fan family's strength, no one would be willing to tolerate Old Lady Fan's temper. Seeing her and the Fan family suffer, countless people were secretly happy and gloating. They couldn't wait for Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao to teach the Fan family a lesson. When they saw Xiao Xian, they were very polite. On the Fan family side, the people who came were still the sisters-in-law and young ladies from the younger generation who had attended the banquet last time. They were still the last to appear as the finale. At such a time, the Fan family was more concerned about this. Old Lady Fan insisted that the Fan family needed to make a more glamorous appearance this time. As a result, The three madams and three young ladies of the Fan family arrived at the banquet dressed in exquisite finery. Their vibrant choice of bright satin garments, adorned with intricate gold and silver embroidery, drew attention. The colors ranged from vivid purple to striking orange-red, while the three young ladies opted for shades of pink, rose-red, and begonired. Every detail, including cuffs, skirts, collars, and lapels, sparkled with embedded gold and silver threads. The accessories they wore were no less opulent, featuring gems and pearls set in pure gold and emerald. The overall effect was dazzling, making the Fan family's women the center of attention as they entered the venue. The sudden quiet in the air suggested a mixture of awe and surprise at the ostentatious display. However, the atmosphere also hinted at an undercurrent of tension and uncertainty, leaving the banquet hall in a momentary hush. First Madame Fan was so embarrassed that she wanted to disappear. She knew that she was being silly, and she did not want to do that. But what could he do? Madame Lady Xiao was so stubborn that she could not even convince her two sons, let alone her daughter-in-law. Plus, there was a Fan Rian who had learned everything from Old Lady Fan, so it was not hard to imagine Euro's second Mrs. Fan didn't like this either, but she was magnanimous and didn't care. The women of the Fan family came forward to greet them, and Xiao Xian said with a smile, "First Madame Fan, second Mrs. Fan, Madame Bai, and the three ladies are dressed so well today." Someone covered his mouth and held back his laughter. Fan Rian subconsciously straightened her back and smiled smugly. "Since we're attending a banquet, we naturally have to dress up well. Isn't this a perfect match?" She thought to herself, "You're naturally looking forward to seeing the women of the Fan family covered in dust today. Then you're wrong. The Fan family won't be defeated so easily. Don't think that just because you can take out 600,000 taels of silver, you have the capital to be arrogant in front of the Fan family." "It was still far away," Xiao Xian responded with a smile. "Well said, Madame Bai." Fan Ruyan giggled in response. "I am Madame Xiao, you flatter me." First Madame Fan wished she could disappear once again. As the guests continued chatting, Xiao Xian eventually apologized and delegated the task of entertaining them to Mrs. Guan. She instructed her maids to provide a delightful meal for the guests. Citing not feeling well, she excused herself to retire. Being both pregnant and the prefect's wife, her claim of not feeling well left little room for objections. Polite expressions of concern followed her departure, and they escorted her to the door. Upon arriving in the garden, Xiao Xian noticed Qing Yin anxiously searching the surroundings. Spotting her, he visibly relaxed and quickly approached with a smile. Returning the smile, Xiao Xian spoke, "All right, I'm going back now. Go, and tell your lord not to worry." Chapter 17:13. Want to inquire Kai Wei, and Kaiwa burst into laughter. Qing Yin, feeling embarrassed, scratched his head and hastily declared, "Old master is still waiting for my response. I'll inform him right away." With those words, he hurriedly made his way out. The laughter of Kai Wei and the others intensified. Once Xiao Xian departed, the atmosphere in the garden gained liveliness. Initially, they attempted to keep their discussion discreet, skirting around the issue. However, as Fan Rian initiated the conversation, they collectively decided to abandon secrecy. They bombarded Mrs. Guan with inquiries, hoping to extract information from her. Residing in the state government office's backyard with Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao, she occasionally encountered Madame Xiao, making her the most knowledgeable among them. The staggering expenditure of 620,000 taels of silver by Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan astonished everyone. The wealth they possessed piqued the interest of many. Yet, the matter of the seed wasn't solely solvable with money. Rumors circulated that an agreement had been reached between Lord Xiao and the three prominent families. What was Lord Xiao's strategy? Time pressed on, and the curiosity about Lord Xiao's actions grew. Had he already set his plan in motion? This concern weighed heavily on their minds. If the three big families faltered and lost their privileges, it would be even more detrimental for second- and third-class families like theirs. Mrs. Guan inwardly sighed. How could she possibly know? Her old master, citing his recovery as an excuse, declined to assist Lord Xiao. Similarly, she claimed to be attending to her old master and restricted her outings. She hadn't visited Xiao Xian or engaged in any conversations with her. She had no intention of attending. Xiao Xian's frustration with her arose from her old master's refusal to aid Lord Xiao. Despite being the wife of the prefect while the other was merely the wife of the deputy prefect, Mrs. Guan found herself overshadowed. Could she openly confront and engage in a feud, especially considering her current pregnancy? Her knowledge about the Xiao family was limited to what others knew, and she felt too embarrassed to admit it. Revealing her lack of information would only emphasize her perceived incompetence. In an attempt to divert the conversation, Mrs. Guan stuttered and tried changing the subject. Fortunately, attention soon shifted to Li Xia and Li Qiu. Though they were only two young girls, being Madame Xiao's maids meant they were privy to more information than Mrs. Guan. However, due to their loyalty to Madame Xiao and the Xiao family, they had to be cautious and not divulge too much. Surrounded by maids and housekeepers, they were bombarded with compliments and enthusiastic greetings. Despite Xiao Xian's precautions, the overwhelming enthusiasm caught them off guard, leaving their minds in turmoil. Fortunately, the crowd, aware of their master's high status as the wife of the prefect, refrained from asking intrusive questions or adopting an aggressive demeanor. Li Xia and Li Qiu, in turn, held their ground, refusing to reveal more than necessary. Nonetheless, there were certain aspects they could emphasize, such as boasting about their old master's wealth and Madame's extensive collection of exquisite, beautiful, and exceptionally precious jewelry. Chapter 17:14. Mocking, they highlighted that their old master genuinely aspired to serve as an official in this region and be a benevolent leader. Therefore, leaving abruptly was out of the question. Additionally, they wanted to convey that both their old master and madam were of high status, noble character, and displayed kindness and gentleness towards everyone. Being a servant in the Xiao family was considered a blessing that anyone would be fortunate to have. The maidservants, however, were disheartened. Who would be interested in hearing such details? As dinner approached, Li Xia and Li Qiu informed Mrs. Guan and extended invitations to the ladies to join them at the table. Eager to witness the unfolding events, Mrs. Guan agreed with a smile and led the group to the banquet hall. Throughout the half-day of being surrounded by inquisitive individuals, Mrs. Guan had to muster considerable energy and endurance, leaving her thoroughly exhausted. As everyone settled down, Mrs. Guan exchanged greetings with each guest. Li Xia and Li Qiu promptly instructed the serving of dishes. Unaware of the chef's identity, Mrs. Guan remained in the dark until the dishes were presented. A collective look of puzzlement crossed the faces of the guests. The meal before them couldn't be described as lavish or high class. Among the offerings was a dish featuring cabbage boiled in a crystal-clear soup, tofu prepared in a simple manner, and a sealed urn over half a foot tall, the contents concealed. Its size was comparable to a large bowl, leaving everyone curious. Other dishes appeared more conventional, but exhibited an exquisite and tempting quality. The braised meat displayed a vibrant red hue, while prawns, a familiar item, were coated in an unknown red sauce. The aroma, slightly sour and sweet, immediately tantalized the taste buds, eliciting anticipatory reactions from the diners. The table also featured a plate of neatly arranged chicken, its skin yellow and shiny, exuding a fresh and tender quality. Having escaped without encountering any trouble from Xiao Xian, Fan Rian couldn't resist poking fun at the dishes when she saw them. Madame Xiao and Lord Xiao must have used up their funds to cover the state office's deficit. The banquet dishes today are quite simple and straightforward. Fan Rian's jesting elicited laughter from many madams and young ladies who shared a good relationship with the Fan family. It was an unspoken understanding among them. Mrs. Guan eagerly anticipated someone ridiculing Xiao Xian and opted not to defend her. Instead, she chimed in, "Mrs. Bai, please don't say that. Madame Xiao has sincerely invited us as her guests. Such an invitation is a rare gesture, and we should appreciate it." Fan Ruyin sneered with disdain, her eyes filled with mockery. She retorted with a faint smile, "Such good intentions can indeed serve as a shield at any time, allowing you to silence others. Don't you think it's quite effective?" Mrs. Guan chuckled. "Mrs. Bai, you certainly have a sense of humor." At that moment, Li Xia and Li Qiu approached. Li Xia smiled and said, "Mrs. Bai, and everyone, you may not be aware, but these dishes were specially ordered by our madam and prepared by the kitchen. Some were even made 2 days ago. They are different from the local dishes, which might be why Madam Bai didn't recognize them. Allow me to explain each dish to the madams and young ladies, and I'm sure they'll appreciate the uniqueness." The two maids began detailing the dishes one by one, covering ingredients, craftsmanship, and the distinct features of each dish. The menu included boiled cabbage, fish soup tofu, braised pork, prawns with soya sauce, Buddha jumps over the wall, and salt-baked chicken. Chapter 17:15. Face slapping. As Li Xia and Li Qiu spoke, they wore warm smiles and extended invitations to all the madams and young ladies to savor the dishes while they were still hot. The enticing descriptions heightened the anticipation of guests, who eagerly picked up their chopsticks, unable to resist the temptation. Curiosity and enthusiasm surged as they couldn't wait to indulge in the flavors. "Not bad at all. What's in this prawn sauce?" "It's a delightful combination of sour and sweet. The chicken is amazing. The skin is tight, and the meat is exceptionally fresh and delicious. I've never encountered such a cooking method. This braised pork is exquisite. It melts in the mouth and isn't greasy at all. And what's this called?" Buddha jumps over the wall. "The soup is marvelous. I must say this boiled cabbage is unexpectedly delightful. It appears simple, but tastes wonderful. It's no wonder, considering the variety of delicacies." The madams and young ladies, being connoisseurs of fine cuisine, recognized the quality of the dishes. Such a feast would easily cost at least 200 taels of silver, considering the array of snacks, tea, fruits, and the entertainment provided by the troupe. Madame Xiao had generously opened 12 tables for the occasion. With the additional expenses on snacks, tea, fruits, and the entertainment troupe, the banquet's total cost exceeded 3,000 taels of silver a euro, a sum indicative of a large-scale event. In usual circumstances, a well-organized banquet could be achieved with 1 or 200 taels. Anything above 500 taels was considered affluent and grand. Madame Xiao's wealth was unmistakable. Fan Ruyan's complexion alternated between shades of green and white. Although no one openly mocked her, the continuous praises for the dishes amounted to a figurative slap on her face, exposing her lack of knowledge. The two girls, in particular, seemed to intentionally direct their comments toward her. The implicit mockery in their gazes left her feeling thoroughly irritated and scorned. The banquet dishes garnered universal praise and satisfaction from all the guests, except for Fan Ruyan, who refrained from tasting the food. Li Xia and Li Qiu reveled in their satisfaction. The carefully prepared dishes served as a subtle rebuke to Fan Ruyan for her unwarranted insults. Madame Xiao's meticulous efforts had resulted in a culinary triumph, proving her culinary knowledge and capabilities. The shrimp with soya sauce, in particular, stood out, offering a delightful blend of sweetness and sourness. Madame Xiao had even brought tomato seedlings from the capital, carefully transplanting and cultivating them in An's province. The resulting harvest enabled the creation of a unique eggplant juice featured in the banquet. For Li Xia and Li Qiu, Fan Ruyan's ignorance and baseless criticisms now seemed all the more absurd. They took pleasure in watching her embarrassment, especially since she had dared to mock Madame and Old Master for their perceived lack of wealth. As the guests finished their meal and engaged in lively conversation, they eventually gathered to enjoy the entertainment. Mrs. Guan, having learned her lesson, took precautions to ensure her son stayed away from the garden to avoid any further incidents. While the ladies indulged in the show, Li Xia and Li Qiu found themselves surrounded by a persistent group still attempting to extract information. Undeterred, the two maids bravely navigated the conversation, relentlessly boasting about the wealth of their old master and madam. The constant bragging left the audience feeling somewhat disheartened. Although the news about the Xiao family's prosperity was surprising, many were more interested in Lord Xiao's stance on the seed and whether the big families would secure benefits from the government in the future. This remained the focal point of their curiosity. Chapter 1716. Rich family. In the intermediate courtyard of the eastern wing, Xiao Xian instructed someone to set up a reclining chair, where she leisurely sat with an air of nonchalance and indifference. While appearing to rest with her eyes closed, she remained attuned to the laughter emanating from the garden. Despite the ambient noise, she adeptly gathered useful information. After listening for a while and feeling a bit fatigued, she smiled and stood up. Taking Caillou's hand, she returned to her room, directing someone to stow away the recliner. The day's banquet proved highly successful. The dishes received universal praise, and especially served fragrant tea. The renowned Golden Sprout once again stole the spotlight. This was an authentic, top-tier Golden Sprout, a beverage not typically offered casually or indifferently. Most of the present madams and young ladies had never experienced the drink before. Even those who had tasted it were few, usually reserving it for esteemed guests or family members on special occasions. Yet, Madame Xiao treated the Golden Sprout with nonchalance. Observing Li Xia and Li Qiu casually sipping the Golden Sprout further intensified the guests' dismay. The maid's expression suggested this was an entirely ordinary matter, deepening the sense of discontent among the attendees. This nonchalant attitude towards such a luxurious item earned Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao even greater respect. The willingness to spend so extravagantly indicated there might be more to their wealth than meets the eye. Riches and honor, when amassed to a certain extent, often hinted at hidden connections and influence not readily apparent to others. Without the patronage of the nobility, safeguarding this wealth might prove challenging. Conversely, the same principle applied to Euro. If one did not possess a certain level of affluence, befriending the nobles could be an elusive endeavor. Initially, many regarded Lord Xiao's decision to venture to An's province for expanding his ambitions as a jest. However, the current perspective left no room for mockery. Lord Xiao demonstrated a distinctiveness unseen in other lords of the prefectural state, a sentiment echoed by Madame Xiao. No one in the prefectural state dared to challenge the dominance of the three prominent families. Li Xia and Liqia's audacity in smilingly announcing the dish names one by one, much to the chagrin of the lady from the Fan family, indicated the need for caution in the future. It was imperative not to become cannon fodder pushed out by the three great clans, especially the arrogant and disrespectful Fan clan. Following the conclusion of the banquet, guests bid their farewells. Li Xia and Li Qiu escorted Xiao Xian out, and when someone suggested saying goodbye to Madame Xiao, they swiftly intervened, understanding the delicate situation. The Fan clan, arriving last, departed early, leaving Fan Ruyan with a pale countenance. Upon returning home, Old Lady Fan inquired about the banquet. To her surprise, Fan Ruyan, with teary eyes, recounted feeling greatly wronged. Old Lady Fan, angered by her daughter's distress, swiftly shifted blame onto her daughters-in-law. Expressing her disappointment, she sternly rebuked their indifference to Fan Ruyan's plight. The scolding extended particularly harshly to the daughter-in-law over 40 and the one over 30, leaving them unable to raise their heads. Attempting to justify herself, second Mrs. Fan only invited fiercer reprimands from Old Lady Fan, who was in no mood for distinctions between them. Chapter 1717. Smug observing her two sister-in-laws struggling to maintain composure after their scolding, Fan Ruyan, with a choked voice, interjected, "Mother, it has nothing to do with the two sister-in-laws. It's all Madame Xiao's fault." In her scheming heart, Fan Ruyan believed that by defending her sister-in-laws after the scolding, she could garner their gratitude. In her view, they owed her a favor, a perception she had always upheld with a smug sense of accomplishment. Unbeknownst to her, she failed to realize that, if not for her, her sister-in-laws wouldn't have suffered this undeserved calamity. A single sentence from her could have clarified the situation, but she chose not to speak up, allowing them to endure the torrent of curses before intervening. Her sister-in-laws harbored deep-seated resentment towards her. Old Lady Fan, though slightly appeased by Fan Rian's defense, snorted dismissively. You don't have to plead for them. They are involved. How can it have nothing to do with them? They just stood by as Madame Xiao bullied them. If you advocate for them, they might not appreciate your kindness. The two Mrs. Fan were infuriated, feeling on the verge of vomiting blood. Fortunately, Old Lady Fan ceased her scolding after a few more words and shifted her focus to Qiao Xian, inquiring about the alleged mistreatment. Fan Ruyan, once again feeling wronged, insisted that she didn't initiate the mockery. Instead, she claimed that the Xiao family's maidservant humiliated her, mocking her ignorance and the incompetence of the Fan family. Old Lady Fan, incensed by the revelation, concluded that Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian were bound to be enemies. Let them revel in their smugness. We still don't know about the seeds yet. I want to see what they can do. As the attention of everyone was fixed on how the state government would address the seed issue, Yuezhing Xiao and his entourage had already arrived in En's province. Xiao Yunduan instructed Jia Heming to find 2 trustworthy scribes and store the seeds in the warehouse. He then drafted an official document, distributing it to the towns to facilitate the planting of spring crops. Jia Heming, stunned by the sudden turn of events, took a moment to collect himself before addressing Xiao Yunduan. Lord, this Thizero Xiao Yunduan smiled. The first batch of seeds has arrived, and the second and third batches will follow in a couple of days. Organize the distribution of the seeds as quickly as possible, ensuring no delay in the spring planting. Of course, Lord. Overjoyed, Jia Heming rushed out to oversee the arrangements. Returning to the east yard, Xiao Yunduan found Songshi, who had just picked up Yuezhing Xiao from Zheng Sang's house. Upon learning about Xiao Xian's pregnancy, Yuezhing Xiao expressed his congratulations and joy. The 3 friends, reunited after a long separation, engaged in lively conversation, relishing the warmth of their reunion. Yuezhing Xiao conveyed greetings from his mother, the first madam, and even brought some gifts for Qiao Xian. The thought of the person who had treated her well and imparted invaluable knowledge for navigating this era warmed Qiao Xian's heart. She smiled and inquired about the well-being of the first madam, whom she missed dearly. As the evening descended, Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian decided to stay for dinner at the east yard of the state office. With Yuezhing Xiao's visit, they planned to enjoy each other's company for a few more days, exploring the delights of An's province together. Chapter 17-18. Dun he was particularly intrigued by the land acquired by Qiao Xian. It piqued his interest enough to warrant a closer inspection. On this occasion, his visit was solely dedicated to delivering a shipment of rice seeds. However, he planned to return in the future to supply Qiao Xian with seeds for herbs and potatoes. Over the years, through cultivation and Xiao Xian's modifications, the potato yield had surpassed the original expectations. Consequently, potatoes gained popularity in Yuzhong. Transporting sufficient seeds for Qiao Xian was no longer a challenge. Yuezhing Xiao's arrival stirred memories of the past for Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan, making them yearn for their home in Shouting Village. Previously, the distance from Beijing had made such thoughts futile. However, the proximity of An's province, only 500 miles away from Yuzhong, now offered a glimmer of hope. Although the journey was arduous, it was manageable in just 2 to 3 days more than a standard trip. Despite the relative ease of returning home, Qiao Xian's pregnancy posed a hurdle. Xiao Yunduan adamantly opposed her venturing out. He consoled her, promising that once the child was born and grew, An's province would likely stabilize, allowing them to return together. Following the purchase of rice seeds, Xiao Yunduan recognized the need for careful planning to safely distribute them to the 17 towns. He harbored suspicions that the 3 prominent families wouldn't remain idle, prompting him to take precautionary measures. While the seeds discreetly entered the city without raising any alarms, their presence would be impossible to conceal once they reached the warehouse. All the families were shocked. Lord Xiao had really done it? without relying on the three great clans. For a moment, many families sent servants to wander around the warehouse. Unauthorized individuals were strictly prohibited from approaching the government warehouse, a well-guarded area surrounded by a high wall. The empty 50-meter perimeter served as a buffer, dissuading anyone from approaching without cause. Nevertheless, resourceful families found their own ways to navigate restrictions. While forbidden from direct access, they could linger at the edge, engaging in conversations with the bailiffs on duty. Convinced that the seeds originated from Lord Xiao, they anticipated the arrival of subsequent batches in the coming days. That evening, the three great clans convened at the Fan clan for a discussion, and the atmosphere was tense. Old Lady Fan wore the ugliest expression, her dissatisfaction apparent. Old Master Hua, appearing gentle and smiling, concealed inner turmoil. First, Old Master Mei, always stern and cold, remained unreadable, but the prevailing mood was undeniably unpleasant. Unable to contain her frustration, Old Lady Fan sneered. Lord Xiao is quite resourceful. I never expected him to acquire such seeds, but merely placing them in the warehouse is not enough. He claims there will be second and third batches. Do any of you believe him? I don't trust him. Could this be a scam? She added. Old Master Hua sighed. Well, it's hard to say. Lord Xiao is not someone to be underestimated. Old Lady Fan dismissed him with a snort. Old Man Hua, this is about bolstering others' morale while diminishing your own prestige. The solution is simple. Destroy this batch of seeds, and everything will be fine. Old Master Hua and Old Master Mei exchanged frowns, contemplating whether Old Lady Fan had lost her senses. Chapter 17:19. No need to worry, the seeds safely resided within the confines of the government warehouse, prompting the question of how to dispose of them. Was burning down the warehouse a viable option? The practical challenges loomed: larger bailiffs on duty, a towering wall, and the assumption that such a drastic move could be executed without repercussions. The landscape had changed. The bailiffs were now under Lord Xiao's influence. Disobeying him was unthinkable, and the prospect of burning the seeds raised moral concerns. The potential consequences of such an act, including retribution, made it a perilous choice. Moreover, initiating a direct conflict with the government would be a fight to the death. Compounding the dilemma was the increasing uncertainty surrounding Lord Xiao's background. Without adequate knowledge, rash actions seemed perilous. The three families struggled to find common ground. Old Master Hua and Old Master Mei disagreed with Old Lady Fan's proposal, opting for a more measured approach. They viewed Lord Xiao as a potential ally rather than an adversary. Assuming he desired stability in An's province's business realm, a mutually respectful conversation seemed plausible. The ability to resolve the seed predicament indicated Lord Xiao's competence and willingness to engage as equals. With this perspective, both the Hua and Mei families chose restraint and patience. Stepping back from the precipice, they embraced a more comprehensive understanding of each other. Recognizing Lord Xiao's pursuit of financial gains, they decided to cooperate, provided he maintained reasonable boundaries. The consensus emerged. As long as Lord Xiao remained within acceptable limits, they would not obstruct his endeavors. The path forward involved a more amicable and pragmatic approach, acknowledging the potential for collaboration rather than confrontation. The Hua family and the Mei family were already in discussions about the gifts they would prepare. In a few days, they planned to send their women to the backyard of the state government office to visit the pregnant Madame Xiao. As the Hua and Mei families opted for a more conciliatory approach, Old Lady Fan found herself with no choice but to adopt a wait-and-see attitude. While she might have considered taking action in the past, the current situation acknowledged the newfound stature of the prefect state's new lord, whom she could no longer dismiss with arrogance. By the second and third day, all the seeds had been meticulously arranged within the government warehouse. The lively atmosphere within the warehouse persisted for the past 2 days, with seeds transported, weighed, registered, and stored. Official documents were prepared for distribution, and the state government organized the dispatch of personnel to towns. The land officers were informed, villages were notified, and the seed distribution process commenced. Each year, a designated scribe assumed responsibility for a town, ensuring that any issues would be promptly addressed. While commoners might be complacent elsewhere, matters related to spring plowing and sustenance were taken seriously by all. Xiao Yunduan had assembled all the scribes, issuing a warning and providing a document for posting in every town. The document explicitly conveyed that any tampering with the spring plantation by the scribes or town chiefs would be reported to the state office. Immediate interrogation and severe consequences awaited those found guilty of such transgressions. The scribes, understanding the gravity of the situation, readily complied with Xiao Yunduan's directives, ensuring a cooperative and compliant stance. Chapter 1720. It must be a great harvest year. Who wouldn't realize that? Lord Xiao was on the verge of setting an example. Those foolish enough to cross his path were asking for trouble. Whatever Lord Xiao had in mind, it was prudent to keep it private, unless one desired a confrontation with him. With all the seeds safely stored in the warehouse, Xiao Xian decided it was time to inspect. Applying some wood power could enhance the seed's growth and yield more ears. Since she couldn't visit every field, the current moment, with all the seeds in one place, presented the most convenient opportunity. This marked her husband's inaugural year in office, a time crucial not only for avoiding disruptions to spring plowing, but also for ensuring a bountiful harvest in the commoners' 500 meters of paddy fields. Xiao Xian recognized that her superpower could boost output by at least 30%. In optimal conditions, with fertile land and proper care, the increase could reach half or even more. What pleased Xiao Xian the most was the decision of the 3 prominent families and other reputable clans to bypass government seeds. They had exclusive channels rumored to provide superior seeds compared to the government's offerings at a low price. Such common goods held no allure for them, particularly for the Fan family, boasting over 100,000 acres of fertile land. Seed selection was paramount. Each year, meticulous consideration went into choosing seeds. The government's common goods were of little interest, even if given for free. Xiao Xian discreetly hinted at going to the warehouse without explicitly stating it, mindful of the rules. She persistently nagged Xiao Yunduan, expressing boredom at home and a desire for a leisurely walk. Xiao Yunduan did not trust her to go alone, but on second thought, they had been in An's province for quite some time, but he had not gone out with his wife yet. He felt a bit guilty, so he coaxed her to wait for a few more days. When he was done with his work, he would go out with her for a walk. Xiao Xian said with a smile, "Aren't you going to see the seeds at the warehouse? I'm going too, okay? I have never seen them before, and I think that they are fresh. I will go with you so that you will not be distracted, and I can relax too." Xiao Yunduan was caught between laughter and tears. "There is nothing to see in the office. Why will my wife think of this? Be good. In 2 days, 3 or 4 days at most, I will keep you companero. All the seeds had already been stored in the warehouse. As the lord of the prefect, he naturally had to go over and take a look with his own eyes. This was also a sign that the local officials valued farming. But I'm just curious. I just want to take a look." Xiao Xian was here for this, so she was not going to be obedient. Xiao Yunduan could not persuade her, so he agreed. Xiao Xian accompanied Xiao Yunduan to the official warehouse in a wagon, quenching her curiosity by applying her superpower to all the seeds. An's province, expansive and sparsely populated, boasted numerous paddy fields. During her pregnancy, half of Xiao Xian's superpowers were automatically dedicated to protecting the baby, leaving her control over only half. After exerting her influence on all the seeds, she felt a wave of fatigue, and her complexion turned pale. Xiao Yunduan, vigilant to her condition, was alarmed. He immediately decided not to let her linger any longer and swiftly instructed the servants to drive the carriage. I.e., Li Xia and Li Qiu were tasked with ensuring her safe return. Chapter 1721. So unlucky. If you're not feeling well, get someone to call a doctor early. He'll be back soon, Xiao Yunduan advised. Xiao Xian offered a gentle smile. Don't worry, husband. I just don't have much appetite this morning, so I'm a bit hungry now, that's all. There's tea and snacks in the wagon, so we'll be fine after some food. While Xiao Yinduan didn't completely believe her, seeing her improve slightly eased his concern. He expressed a few words of care and saw her off to the wagon. The road conditions in An's province were challenging, especially outside the main roads. Carelessness could lead to traps, and the carriage had to navigate slowly. Coincidentally, it was market day, and as they passed through the bustling market center, Qiao Xian decided to stop at a 3-story tea house. The lively street was filled with peddlers, stalls, and commoners selling their wares. As the carriage was temporarily stuck due to the congestion, Qiao Xian, accompanied by Ai, Li Xia, Li Qiu, and Kai Wei, decided to take a break at the tea house. Planning to leave when the road cleared, they ascended to the 2nd floor. To their surprise, they encountered Fan Rian and her daughter, as well as a mother and daughter from the Liao family, just as they were about to leave. Mrs. Liao greeted Qiao Xian with a smile. Madam Xiao. Fan Rian offered a polite smile, but it held a touch of insincerity. Madam Xiao, what a coincidence. Qiao Xian nodded and smiled. What a coincidence. Originally having little connection and even harboring secret conflicts, encountering each other by chance could have been an opportunity for a simple greeting. However, Fan Rian seemed reluctant to leave it at that. Especially with a third party present, Fan Rian always felt compelled to act, fearing Qiao Xian's judgment if she didn't. As the lady of the Fan family, she couldn't possibly be afraid of the prefect's wife. Throughout the tenure of numerous prefects' wives, the Fan family had consistently aligned with them. The more a family faced losses and humiliation, the more Fan Rian felt the need to maintain her momentum. Smiling, she remarked, Madam Xiao, you look remarkably well and energetic today. Why did you claim to be unwell 2 days ago? And now you're out shopping. Are you underestimating us? Is that why you refuse to join us at banquets? Qiao Xian burst into laughter and exchanged a glance with Fan Rian. What are you talking about? I'm pregnant. Not feeling well at the moment. How else can I explain it to you? I'll host a banquet when I'm free and treat you well. I doubt that. Madam Xiao, you're precious. If anything happens, we won't be able to explain it clearly. Plus, if you don't feel well again, it might be intentional. That wouldn't sound good. Qiao Xian responded. Thank you for your consideration, Mrs. Bai. I wouldn't have thought of it if you hadn't mentioned it. Growing more displeased, Fan Rian glanced at Li Xia and Li Qiu, wearing a suggestive smile. I have a good idea. Would you like to hear it, Madam Xiao? She continued. Do you want to hear it? Without waiting for Qiao Xian's response, Fan Rian suggested with a smile, Madam Xiao, it might be inconvenient for you. Wouldn't it save you a lot of trouble if you had an assistant? I think Miss Li Xia and Miss Li Qiu are quite charming. They're young, beautiful, and have a good temperament. Madam Xiao, why don't you ask Lord Xiao to give you face and take them as concubines? If any issues arise in the future, you'll have someone help you. No need to trouble an outsider like Mrs. Guan. That's a good idea, isn't it? Chapter 1722. Disturbing so many people, Fan Rian covered her mouth, giggling as she spoke. Raising her slender eyebrows, she praised Li Xia and Li Qiu with a smile. Madam Xiao, you have good taste and know how to take care of people. Look at how pretty these 2 girls are. Whether Lord Xiao is lucky or not depends on whether you are willing to do it. Madam Xiao, you are such a virtuous woman. You must be willing to do it, right? Qiao Xian was rendered speechless. What kind of peculiar thought process was this? Everywhere she went, there seemed to be people concerned about her husband's household affairs and questioning her virtue. It was rather perplexing. Her husband didn't even have a concubine, yet he became an eyesore to so many people. Li Xia and Li Qiu blushed, feeling a mix of anger and embarrassment. Unable to contain herself, Li Xia retorted, Mrs. Bai, please refrain from talking nonsense. Our lord and madam share a deep love. If our lord were to hear about this absurdity, he'd likely be displeased. Mrs. Bai, be cautious with your words. Though I'm just a servant, the thought of becoming a concubine has never crossed my mind. It's not something to be proud of. Mrs. Bai, don't drag me into this. am not a servant of your family, and you can't fabricate stories. Li Qiu sneered as well. Mrs. Bai, aren't you reaching too far? What's your motive for using such words to mock our madam? Or is it just your nature? Do you enjoy spreading rumors about other old masters and madams considering concubines? These words hinted that Mrs. Bai behaved like a matchmaker meddling in others' affairs. Furious and visibly trembling, Fan Rian glared at Xiao Xian, sneering, Madam Xiao, your maids are quite audacious. Will you stand by and let me be humiliated like this? Xiao Xian calmly responded. Some people seem to enjoy humiliating themselves. Who can they blame? You. Is there a place for you to interfere in my lord's household matters? Your interest in other people's concubines is quite surprising. Perhaps you should consider taking in a few more for your own husband. It would save you energy and time, allowing you to focus on your own affairs. Fan Rian had never experienced such humiliation, especially not in front of her face. The damage and shame were magnified. She sneered angrily. Madam Xiao, you're being unreasonable. Can't you let others question your virtue without getting angry from embarrassment? Xiao Xian sneered in response. Mrs. Bai, why don't you enlighten me on your own virtues? Fan Rian was left speechless. Her husband was recruited by her. How could she allow anyone to comment on her husband's affairs, let alone entertain the thought of him taking a concubine? He didn't even have a maid. Such ideas were out of the question, as she firmly believed she had the right to dictate matters within her household. Xiao Xian inwardly chuckled at the absurdity of Fan Rian's situation. Despite facing such circumstances, she still found the audacity to comment on others. I don't need your concern for my family, Mrs. Bai. You don't need to teach me how to manage my lord. I only take orders from my lord, Xiao Xian declared as she walked past Fan Rian and the others, entering a private room at the tea house with Li Xia. Fan Rian's expression turned frosty, clenching her fists in shame and anger. Mrs. Liao, sensing Fan Rian's discomfort, decided to join her side, subtly ridiculing Xiao Xian in a low voice. This attempt to show support for Fan Rian lightened her mood, and they left the scene. In the private room, Li Xia and Li Qiu appeared a bit angered and uneasy. Xiao Xian reassured them with a smile. That woman is absurd. Don't take her words seriously. It would be a joke if we let her provoke us. Chapter 1723. Rice Seed Li Xia and Li Qiu shared laughter amidst their tears. Thank you, madam. Madam, you truly understand. It's a blessing for us. Xiao Xian threw a glance at Li Xia and playfully remarked, I'm eagerly anticipating your wedding. Li Qiu covered her mouth, stifling a snicker. Madam, please don't tease me. Li Xia blushed, finding it too embarrassing to smile. Throughout the gathering, Li Xia had exchanged glances with Songshi, a subtle connection that hadn't escaped Xiao Xian's notice. Had Xiao Yinwan not relocated to the rural area, Songshi would have approached Xiao Xian to discuss proposing to Li Xia. Now that he was in An's province, it was inevitable that Songshi would seek Xiao Xian's approval for their marriage. Aware that many in the Xiao family were privy to their connection, Xiao Xian had discreetly reminded Li Xia not to go too far in their interactions. Even if nothing improper occurred between them, the potential harm to their reputations was a concern. Li Xia had taken Xiao Xian's advice seriously, avoiding private meetings with Songshi. His impatience to marry was evident, a sentiment that Xiao Xian observed with amusement. As the market gradually dispersed, Xiao Xian and her servant descended, entered the wagon, and returned to the state office's backyard. Soon after, Xiao Yunduan returned, relieved to find Xiao Xian in better spirits. Meanwhile, Fan Rian returned home, her mind consumed by frustration. She sought solace in Old Lady Fan's company, venting her grievances. Old Lady Fan, already displeased with the feud over the seed, grew even angrier witnessing Xiao Xian supposedly mistreating her beloved daughter. Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao are incredibly intimidating. They show no regard for the Fan family whatsoever. I try to overlook it, but their greed is escalating. Even my daughter and son-in-law can't escape their constant meddling. The prefect's wife is excessively nosy. She's arrogant and completely oblivious. When old lady Fan heard her daughter complain about Madame Xiao commenting on her son-in-law's reluctance to take concubines, she nearly exploded in anger. This was crossing a line. Who was Madame Xiao to interfere in her family's private matters? Was her arrogance fueled by some family background and connections? They should remember that this was Anne's province's territory. If the Fan family decided to oppose them, did they truly believe they could get away with it? How naive. Old Lady Fan was determined to teach Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan a lesson. This was far from over. Consequently, the shipment of rice seeds sent to Liangshan town in the southeast of Anne's province was intercepted by the bandits of Liuhe Fort at Luoshirmount. Liangshan town, being the second largest town in Anne's province for cultivating food, had flatter terrain and more fertile fields than other places. In terms of rice seeds alone, even excluding some large families acquiring seeds through their own channels, the required amount was still around 160,000 caddies. On the journey, about half of the 160,000 caddies of rice seeds fell prey to the mountain bandits of Liuhe Fort. Officer Liu, responsible for the convoy, was terrified, and Sun Qian's face mirrored his distress. He dispatched 2 bailiffs to the state office for reporting and compelled Officer Liu to continue transporting the remaining rice seeds to Liangshan town with him. Retrieving the rice seeds taken by the bandits of Liuhe Fort was a priority, but the remaining half had to reach Liangshan town first. Chapter 1724. Follow-up. The document had been dispatched to town 2 days ago, and the timely delivery of the rice seeds was crucial to avoid any potential disruptions. The decision was made to distribute the available half first and devise a plan for the remaining seeds. Xiao Yunduan breathed a sigh of relief upon receiving the news and sought updates from Sun Qian and Officer Liu regarding the rice seeds. It was a relief. Regardless, at least half of the rice seeds would reach Liangshan town promptly, preventing widespread panic. While angered and somewhat surprised, Xiao Yunduan wasn't entirely caught off guard. This wasn't a prefecture capital of other states. It was a nest of bandits. What couldn't bandits in such a nest do? With a scarcity of resources, it wasn't entirely unexpected that the bandits would target the rice seeds. However, it was unacceptable. Xiao Yunduan decided to enhance security measures, increasing the number of escorts. Some would be visible, while others would operate covertly. He preferred a slightly delayed delivery to risking another incident. He had already instructed Yue Jingxiao to prepare around 60,000 caddies of rice seeds to compensate for the loss. Yet, a repeat occurrence would pose significant challenges. Convening everyone in the state office, Xiao Yunduan held a meeting to rearrange the rice seed delivery, emphasizing the importance of a secure transfer. The tension in the room was palpable, and everyone nodded in agreement, fully aware of the gravity of the situation. The atmosphere resembled walking on thin ice, with a collective fear of mishandling the task. While Xiao Yunduan asserted Officer Liu's innocence and refrained from punishing him, there lingered a sense of uncertainty regarding his true sentiments. They couldn't shake the feeling that there might be underlying resentment. The uncertainty of when he might pose challenges in the future lingered in their thoughts. In a private meeting, Jia Heming shared a concerning revelation with Xiao Yunduan. The 3 powerful mountain bandits Min family tribe, Liuhe Fort, and Tiger Head tribe had absorbed numerous vagabonds, gaining immense influence that even the 3 major families hesitated to confront. With spring and summer leaving the young and elderly in their care, the mountain's limited resources led to insufficient food. Traditionally, during this period, the bandits descended to collect protection fees. This year, insufficient funds may have prompted Tiger Head tribe to resort to robbing food. Jia Heming subtly conveyed that the Min family tribe and Liuhe Fort might harbor similar intentions. For a prolonged period, Jia Heming emphasized to Xiao Yunduan that the 3 prominent families had fulfilled their protection fee obligations. However, due to Lord Xiao's recent conflicts with these families, they might withhold protection fees this year. It sounded absurd but was, unfortunately, the reality. Consequently, the mountain bandits might target the rice seeds. Expressing genuine concern for Lord Xiao's well-being, Jia Heming proposed acquiring extra security for the journey, even suggesting purchasing protection from potential threats. However, he clarified that this was just a precautionary measure. Jia Heming detested the mountain bandits and hoped for Lord Xiao to assert dominance over them. Nevertheless, Xiao Yunduan needed to prioritize his safety. The journey was fraught with risks, and the potential loss of the seeds, if anything went awry, would be too great.